Welcome to AI Otaku Studio. Like, subscribe, and enjoy this video. Chapter 1, Douluo Sky Screen Emperor Hayashin, the double pupil Lin Hao. Douluo Continent. Shrek Academy. The scorching sun poured its blazing rays onto the crude playground. Yu Xiaogang and Flender stood side by side in the shade, looking at the 7 boys and girls running laps in front of them, their faces unable to hide their gratification and pride. Dai Mubai's evil eyes were full of perfunctoriness. Ma Hongjun was panting. Oscar was rubbing his fingers, seemingly pondering a new sausage recipe. And Tang San, Xiao Wu Ningrongrong, and Zhuking, who had just joined Shrek Academy yesterday, carried the awkwardness and sharpness of newcomers. "These are the monsters of my Shrek Academy," Yu Xiaogang said with his hands behind his back, his voice filled with absolute confidence. "Flender, just watch. Under my professional guidance, they will surely become the most powerful team in the entire Douluo Continent. None other." Flender pushed up the crystal glasses on the bridge of his nose and nodded in agreement. "Xiaogang, you truly are the #1 in theory in the entire Douluo Continent. Your disciple Tang San, innate spirit power. Innate full spirit power plus that miraculous skill with hidden weapons. I really can't imagine who among his peers could be his opponent. Even if placed in the whole world, no. Even if there are other worlds, he is definitely the most genius one." Tang San, hearing this from afar, had a calm expression, but a flash of absolute confidence and arrogance swept through the depths of his eyes. He was the most genius one, whether it was the Tang sect of his previous life or the Douluo world. Even if there were other worlds, it would still be the same. However, just at this moment, boom! A deafening sound, as if the heavens were splitting open, exploded in everyone's ears without warning. The sky above the entire Shrek Academy. No, it should be said the sky above the entire Douluo world suddenly darkened. What happened? Everyone looked up in curiosity and horror. They saw the originally clear sky split open like glass, forming a huge crack that spanned the horizon. Deep within the endless dark void realm, a huge, incomparably vast sky screen, as if sketched by pure golden light, slowly unfolded. An indescribable, terrifying aura swept down like a tsunami, enveloping the entire Douluo Continent. All time and space, past and future. At this moment, whether it was the super Douluo Kaiyan Dailiu in seclusion deep within the spirit hall, or the high priestess, Bo Saixi, gazing at the sky from far away on Sea God Island. Even the beast god Emperor Tian, Ice Emperor Muen, Long Xiaoyao, Electrolux, in different spaces and times. Every existence standing at the apex of the Douluo world felt an irresistible fear and trembling rise instinctively from the depths of their souls. The next second, a magnificent, indifferent, emotionless voice, like a decree from the heavenly Tao, resounded in the heart of every living being. The myriad world's sky screen has descended upon the Douluo Continent, currently randomly connecting to the heavens and myriad worlds. Ding! The target selected for this connection is, of the heavens and myriad worlds, shrouding the heavens world. The sky screen will randomly select individuals to enter the shrouding the heavens world and open a live broadcast for the entire Douluo Continent. Those selected, if they successfully survive in the shrouding the heavens world for 3 months, can choose to return to the Douluo Continent temporarily or permanently, and can bring back all the power, knowledge, and items obtained during that period. Note, the selected individuals will automatically be adapted to the most basic survival requirements of the shrouding the heavens world. The Douluo world. After a brief shock and deathly silence, the crowd erupted into an uproar. Shrouding the heavens world. Tang San raised his eyebrows slightly, the light of the purple demon eye flashing in his eyes and disappearing. Never heard of it. Is it a small secret realm belonging to the Douluo Continent? Seems somewhat interesting. If there is an opportunity within, Let those primitive natives witness the power of my Tang sect hidden weapons. Yu Xiaoging looked at the huge sky screen in the sky, shocked at first, but soon a blazing light erupted in his eyes. Flender, did you hear that? Another world. The natives are all stupid and ignorant. This is the perfect stage to verify my 10 core competencies of spirits. If the natives of that world can also believe in my theory, it will prove that my theory holds true across the heavens and myriad worlds. By then, let's see what those old fogies in the family have to say. But Flender was a bit worried. What if that world called Shrouding the Heavens doesn't have spirits? No spirits? How low-end must such a world be? Won't it be inhabited by a bunch of monkeys? Yu Xiaoging's eyes were full of mockery. Spirit Hall, inside the Supreme Pontiff Palace. Bibai Dong, sitting high on the Supreme Pontiff throne, tapped her scepter lightly with her slender fingers. A flash of shock appeared on her beautiful face, but it was quickly replaced by grace and majesty. Shrouding the Heavens world. The name sounds imposing, but it's likely just a small world. How can it compare with the Douluo Continent, which possesses the divinity legacy? Thinking this, she turned her head slightly and ordered the chrysanthemum Douluo Yu Guan, who was standing by the side, indifferently. Yue Guan, pass down the order. Any spirit master of my spirit hall who is fortunate enough to be selected to enter this world must do their utmost to seize all good fortune and opportunity for my spirit hall. If you encounter resistance from natives, or those who do not comply, no need to ask for instructions, kill without mercy. Star Luo Empire, Hu Yuhao felt his weak spirit power, which was still stuck at level 9, and looked at the sky screen in the sky. A fire of hope ignited in his heart. My spirit power cultivation is slow. If this Shrouding the Heavens world really has an opportunity, maybe I can. Kaiyan Rengsu, Zhuking, Guyuina Wang Donger Wang Kier, Ice Emperor Snow Empress. Countless powerhouses and prodigies of the Douluo Continent, after the initial shock, felt a strong sense of curiosity, anticipation, and greed surge in their hearts. Almost everyone was rubbing their hands, preparing to sweep through the Shrouding the Heavens world and seize the opportunity within. Meanwhile, on the other side of the distant sky screen, a completely different, magnificent world, the Shrouding the Heavens world. Burial Emperor Star. Above the sky of the eastern wasteland, southern region, above the clouds of the 9 heavens, a vast heavenly palace floated quietly. This was the heavenly court warship personally forged by the Lin Hao, who ruled the heavens and suppressed the myriad domains, the White Jade Capital. The White Jade Capital was not a palace as mortals imagined. Its foundation was forged from profound yellow mother chi. The walls were cast from stars, and the roof tiles reflected the myriad phenomena like glaze. Each palace towered as if entering chaos, the corridors wound back, and the eaves pierced the void realm. The palaces were connected by rainbow bridges, and beneath the bridges flowed not water, but fragments of time and rivers of Tao laws. Even though the entire heavenly palace was silent, it naturally exuded a supreme majesty that made all spirits bow and all worlds come to pay homage. And in the deepest part of the palace, atop a towering, star-plucking tower that could overlook the rotation of the stars of the heavens, a figure lay with his head resting on a beauty's lap. The beauty was naturally a stunning beauty, the contemporary holy maiden of the Yachi Holy Land. And the man had white hair like frost, falling to his shoulders. His face was as handsome as a youth's, but one could see the vicissitudes of life. Of course, the most striking thing must be his pupils. A pair of golden double pupils. When they opened and closed, it seemed as if the universe was being born and dying, and the galaxy was collapsing. He was the only great emperor of the current age, the lord of the heavenly court, revered by all races of the heavens as Emperor Heishan, Lin Hao. At this moment, he held a miraculous medicine in his palm. The plant was only 3 inches tall, but shaped like a white tiger roaring at the sky. Its whole body was permeated with glaze-like divine radiance, and the rich death chi and vast life essence turned into strands of white mist swirling around it. It seemed that just by breathing, it could make a withered star rejuvenate and bring life to a dead land. White tiger divine medicine. If consumed, living out a second life would be easy, and the emperor's life could be extended by at least 10,000 years. Lin Hao whispered, his double pupils calm and waveless. After all, to him, the undying divine medicine, while rare, was not a necessity. He had too many ways to live another life. After a moment of silence, he flipped his wrist, and the divine medicine disappeared into his sleeve. The timing is not right. Lin Hao curled his lips into a smile that was not quite a smile, looking at the woman. Gai Yu, tell me. The world knows that I have entered my twilight years. My blood and qi have declined, and I am now at the end of my strength. Lin Hao's gaze pierced through the layers of palaces of the white jade capital, crossed the endless galaxy, and fell toward the life-forbidden zones that lurked on the edge of the universe, having buried more than one era. There, ancient wills were awakening in the divine source, stirring and whispering. Tell me, how many fish hidden in the forbidden zones can I lure out? The woman shook her head with a smile. Gaiyu does not know. Undying emperor, can you hold back? And those supremes who cut themselves off and hibernated for eternity. The temptation to kill a twilight great emperor and seize their emperor origin to prolong their remaining lives. Are you really not tempted? Lin Hao chuckled. However, just at this moment, Ding detected that the host has come into contact with dimensional fluctuations, meeting the conditions for system binding. Douluo Continent apprentice staking and concubine taking system is loading. Chapter 2, System. Recruit disciples or take concubines. The first batch of transmigrators from Douluo Continent to Shrouding the Heavens world. Congratulations, host, for your transmigration to Douluo Continent. You have successfully activated the Recruit Disciples, Take Concubine system. As long as you recruit disciples, or take concubines from the heaven-chosen women of the Douluo world, you will receive generous rewards to help you transcend to the other shore. At this moment, an abrupt, mechanical-sounding prompt echoed deep within the sea of consciousness of Lin Hao. Even with the flawless Tao heart of an emperor-level being like Lin Hao, he could not help but be stunned for a moment. Soon, he raised an eyebrow. He murmured to the system in his heart. System, transmigration to Douluo Continent, recruit disciples or take concubines. Lin Hao's voice carried a hint of peculiarity. I transmigrated here 10,000 years ago, and I've been an emperor for nearly 10,000 years. Is this system lost? You're only showing up now. And Lin Hao looked at the magnificent imperial palace he resided in and felt the vast, boundless shrouding the heavens world beneath his feet. His tone became even more subtle. What the hell is this transmigration to Douluo Continent? This is clearly the shrouding the heavens world. That's right, Lin Hao was a transmigrator and a peerless prodigy born with innate dual pupils. 10,000 years ago, he walked out of the ancient forbidden land. He swept across the 9 heavens and 10 lands, trampled upon the ancient star paths, defeated all the emperor's sons of various races, and ultimately attained the Tao and became an emperor in a mere 300 years. Afterwards, he even established the supreme heavenly court of the human race, shaking the universe. All races in the heavens honored him as Emperor Heishan. Ding, detecting the host's query, the system solemnly explains again. The core operating rules of this system are as follows. Target world locked, Douluo Continent. Confirmation correct. Core task mode. The host can establish a deep connection with the heaven-chosen women of the Douluo world through either recruit disciples or take concubines. Reward mechanism. Once a relationship is successfully established, rewards are triggered immediately. Furthermore, as your favorability with the heaven-chosen women continues to increase, continuous additional grand gifts will be unlocked. Recruit take concubine target, Zhu Zhuking. Identity, fourth young miss of the Zhu family in the Star Luo Empire, one of the Shrek 7 devils. Initial reward, 100-year longevity. Favorability reaches 10%. Favorability reaches 20%. Favorability reaches 100%. God position of the god of speed, 1. Recruit take concubine target, Kayan Rangsu. Identity, daughter of Supreme Pontiff Bibai Dong of Spirit Hall, successor to the angel god position. Initial reward, Great Radiance Treasure Technique. Favorability reaches. Recruit take concubine target, Gu Yuina. Identity, Silver Dragon King, master of all spirit beasts. Initial reward, a drop of true dragon blood essence. Favorability reaches. Zhu Zhuking, Kayan Rangsu, and Gu Yuina were just the tip of the iceberg. The women involved covered almost every famous and named individual in the Douluo world, such as Bibai Dong, Hu Liana, Tang Wudong, Wang Qier, Ice Emperor, Snow Empress. It was even so outrageous that it included Ko Tiangxiang. Lin Hao looked speechlessly at this time-confused Douluo recruit disciples take concubine system and couldn't be bothered to pay attention to it. Forget it. Regardless, for something of unknown origin like this, it's best to just erase its intelligence. Although Lin Hao sensed a familiar aura from this system, which made him thoughtful, he still acted without hesitation, his mind moving. If its origin is truly what I suspect, then I should be able to easily extinguish its intelligence. Thinking this, a black light capable of annihilating all things flashed instantly within Lin Hao's right dual pupil. This black light did not shoot outward, but acted directly deep within Lin Hao's sea of consciousness. Within Lin Hao's sea of consciousness, the newly condensed system light sphere suddenly trembled violently, and the spiritual radiance flowing on its surface was swept away by the light of annihilation, instantly dissipating. It was left as a blank program, as if it had been formatted. Only the most basic functions for dialogue and reward distribution, which Lin Hao had intentionally left behind, remained. It really is just as I thought. Lin Hao shook his head. Fine, it might be good to study it. Although the world Lin Hao was in was the Shrouding the Heavens world, and not the Douluo Continent, and Lin Hao felt it was impossible for him to recruit disciples or take concubines from the heaven-chosen women of the Douluo world. But Lin Hao felt, if he could modify its rules to make it recruit disciples or take concubines from the heaven-chosen women of the Shrouding the Heavens world, then it would be useful. After all, some of the rewards regarding the 100-year longevity pill actually made Lin Hao slightly interested. There was no help for it. Although the Shrouding the Heavens world was far more powerful than the Douluo Continent, powerful enough that Lin Hao could destroy the entire Douluo Continent with a single glance, Lin Hao had to admit. The longevity substances in the Shrouding the Heavens world were even scarcer than in the Douluo Continent. Lin Hao was confident that he could become an immortal in the mortal world and fear no passage of time. However, for his beloved, although Lin Hao had used his dual pupil treasure technique to slow down the passage of time for them, it was only a slowing. There would eventually come a day when there would truly be no way. Before, Lin Hao could only prepare to seal them into divine sources when they reached their twilight years. But now, with the appearance of this recruit disciples, take concubine system. At this moment, Empress Tantai Gaiyu looked at Lin Hao, who had suddenly stopped speaking and even inexplicably used his dual pupil annihilation treasure technique, feeling a bit curious. Your Majesty, what's wrong? Nothing, Lin Hao shook his head. By the way, you told me before that this batch of maids needs to be dismissed because of their age. Yes, Empress Tantai Gaiyu nodded. I came this time mainly to ask your Majesty if there is anyone you specifically need to keep for the harem. If not, then except for those who are homeless, The rest will all be dismissed and re-recruited. Lin Hao raised his hand and tapped Empress Tantai Gaiyu's forehead helplessly. Little Yue, why ask me such things? Am I that desperate? That's hard to. Empress Tantai Gaiyu rolled her eyes at Lin Hao, looking both charming and annoyed. Tusk, still angry about the extreme Dao Emperor Du incident. That was just me being young and frivolous back then, and I was being chased by you with no other choice, so I thought I'd try to imitate. Pei tilde. Meanwhile, on the distant Douluo Continent plain, above the firmament, a huge sky screen looked down upon all living beings like a god's painting. After the rules were announced, there was a brief silence. Soon, that cold, mechanical voice resonated throughout every corner of the Douluo Continent again. Number of transmigration quotas this time, 3. The first batch of transmigrators is being randomly selected. In an instant, above the sky screen, the figures of countless people from the past, present, and future of the Douluo Continent flashed by rapidly. Looking at the sky screen, everyone on the Douluo Continent, whether they were spirit masters or commoners, and no matter where they were, held their breath and silently waited. Waiting to see if they were the chosen one. After all, being able to go to a small world to bully the natives, and the uncultivated forests often held many opportunities, not to mention an entire world. Who wouldn't look forward to that? Finally, the sky screen stopped flickering. Ding, first selected person, Wuhan Academy student, Zhang Ming, level 15 Spirit Master. Spirit City, Elementary Department of Wuhan Academy. A young boy wearing a common spirit robe with a still immature face stared at the sky, dumbfounded and overjoyed. Is it me? And looking at Zhang Ming, a huge uproar erupted around him, full of envy and jealousy. Damn, such good luck. He's just a commoner spirit master with innate spirit power level 3, nothing special. How does he deserve to be chosen by the sky screen? Soon, a cardinal from Spirit Hall appeared quickly. Zhang Ming, the Supreme Pontiff wishes to see you. Ding, second selected person, Heaven Du Empire New Uding City resident, Long Yashin level 0. New Uding City, in a remote and dilapidated alley. A beggar, about 30 years old, ragged and sallow-faced, was curled up in a corner. Ding, third selected person, Shrek Academy student, Zhu Zhuking, level 27 Spirit Grandmaster. Chapter 3, Ancient Forbidden Land, one step from black hair to white, shocking the Douluo Continent. Zhuking. When the 3 words, Zhuking, rang out from the sky screen, the simple playground of Shrek Academy fell silent. Tang San, Xiao Wu Daimubai, and the others were stunned for a moment, then their eyes filled with surprise. It's actually Zhuking. Dai Mubai looked at his fiancée, a flash of complexity in his eyes. There was surprise, envy, and also a trace of something hard to detect, jealousy. Oscar and Ma Hongjin did not seem to have as many complex thoughts. Zhuking, the third candidate, is actually you, going directly to a new world to explore. I'm so envious. As for Tang San, although he did not speak, the light of his purple demon eye flickered slightly, clearly showing his heart was not as calm as his appearance suggested. Transmigration to a world, exploring the unknown, seizing opportunity. He subconsciously clenched his fists, whispering in a voice only he could hear, "Damn it, it's not me." As for Xiao Wu and Ning Rongrong, perhaps because they were women, their focus was clearly different from that of Tang San and the others. They looked at Zhuking with some concern. A strange world. Will it be dangerous for Zhuking to go alone? Rest assured. At this moment, Yu Xiaogeng walked over slowly with his hands behind his back. His gaze swept over the slightly agitated Tang San Daimubai, and others, especially Xiao Wu and Ning Rongrong, his face full of confidence. Rongrong, Xiao Wu, you need not worry about Zhuking. This so-called shrouding the heavens world definitely cannot be that strong. After all, in our Douluo Continent, the Spirit Master System is complete. Which of the titled Douluo-level powerhouses does not possess the power to move mountains and fill lakes? What does a nameless Shrouding, the heavens world, have to compare with us? However, speaking of this, Yu Xiaogang changed his tone. Although Shrouding the heavens is a lower-level world, it likely has some opportunities available, and when the time comes. Yu Xiaogang's tone became serious and earnest. Zhuking, your personality is cold, but your heart is kind. This is a merit, but in that world, you must temporarily put aside this kindness. Remember my words. Once you discover anything in that world that might be useful to you, whether it be exotic flowers and herbs, or materials, or even the things of the natives. As long as you think it has value, you must not be soft-hearted. Yu Xiaogang's eyes were full of confidence, looking down from above. In a lower-level world, our Douluo Continent spirit masters are heavenly gods. When necessary, you can use any means. Use your powerful spirit and spirit ability to let those natives understand what true power is. Zhuking listened quietly, nodding slightly without speaking. She only looked at the huge sky screen in the sky, her eyes full of determination. The oppression of her family, the unreliability of the philandering Dai Mubai, and her craving for power had long made her understand the cruel laws of survival in this world. A brand new, undeveloped world. This might be the perfect opportunity for me to break free from my fate and gain power quickly. I must not let this opportunity slip by. While Zhuking was deep in thought, the sky screen rippled again. 3 brilliant golden rays of light descended from the sky screen like rainbows, shrouding Spirit City, Niuding City, and Zhuking at Shrek Academy, respectively. At the same time, the screen divided into 3, starting a live broadcast from 3 different perspectives. Shrouding the heavens world. Big Dipper, the Burial Emperor Star, Eastern Wasteland, Southern Region. Accompanied by a flash of golden light, 3 figures that did not belong to this world appeared out of thin air, then turned into 3 streams of light, dispersing to different corners of the Eastern Wasteland, Southern Region. First perspective, Niuding City resident Long Yashin, level 0. So this is the Shrouding the Heavens world. Long Yashin looked at the lush, ancient forest behind him, where the trees towered into the sky and everything was silent. And at the pile of rocks under his feet, where not a blade of grass grew, with only some dead, ancient tree trunks standing tall, and the huge stone tablet directly in front. This stone tablet was at least several hundred meters high, its momentum reaching the sky, ancient and vicissitudinous, as if it carried endless years. Inscribed on it were some ancient seal characters that Long Yashin should not have been able to understand, but somehow inexplicably knew the meaning of ancient, forbidden, land. This stone tablet. Long Yashin seemed curious and walked slowly toward the stone tablet. Douluo Continent. Spirit Hall, inside the Supreme Pontiff Palace. Bibai Dong sat high on her throne, her slender fingers tapping lightly against the luxurious Supreme Pontiff scepter, her beautiful eyes narrowed, watching Long Yashin's perspective on the sky screen. Ancient forbidden land. This world doesn't look any different from ours, except for that stone tablet. Bibai Dong did not know if it was her illusion. That stone tablet inscribed with the 4 characters ancient forbidden land, just standing there quietly, made her feel inexplicably palpitated. But soon Bibai Dong shook her head. She was already a titled Douluo. Apart from those few powerhouses in the entire Douluo continent, no one was a match for her in a single exchange. How could a stone tablet make her feel dangerous? I must be overthinking it. Shrek Academy, Playground. Tang San, Xiao Wu, Daimubai, and the others were also watching the live broadcast on the sky screen. Ancient forbidden land, Tang San murmured subconsciously. This place is called a forbidden land. Will it be very dangerous? Xiao Wu asked curiously at this moment. Upon hearing this, Yu Xiaogang shook his head, his eyes full of indifference. Zio Wu, one cannot look at problems only on the surface, one must learn to analyze. The so-called forbidden land is often just the ignorance of the natives, their fear and deification of unknown power. He kept his hands behind his back and spoke eloquently. Think about our Douluo Continent, the truly dangerous places, like the core area of the Stardew Great Forest or the core circle of the extreme north. Those places are fraught with crises, and even titled Douluo might perish, but have they ever erected any stone tablets as warnings? No. Because true danger is silent and permeates the environment, it simply does not need this kind of formalistic marking. The more Yu Xiaogeng spoke, the more he felt his analysis was well-founded, pointing to Long Yashin, who was walking cautiously forward on the sky screen. Look, this Long Yashin from Shrouding City is just an ordinary person. After he went in, was there any anomaly? Doesn't the surrounding environment look calm? I dare to assert that this so-called ancient forbidden land is most likely a hunting ground or sacrificial area demarcated by the natives of that world, just erecting a stone tablet to scare people. At most, there might be some poisonous insects and wild beasts, whose strength is probably not even equal to a 10-year spirit beast. However, before Yu Xiaogeng could finish his professional analysis, the expression of being in control on his face instantly froze. Replacing it was a sudden contraction of his pupils, full of horror and disbelief. It was not just him. Tang San, Dai Mubai, Oscar, Ma Hongjun, Ning Rongrong, Zio Wu, and even Flender on the playground, everyone watching the sky screen at this moment, felt their hair stand on end. In the sky screen, Long Yashin was walking toward the ancient Forbidden Land stone tablet. When he lifted his first step, he was still a strong man in his 30s. But the moment his foot fell, a strange and terrifying thing happened. With this step, it was as if he had spanned decades of time. The curious expression on his face hadn't even had time to change before he rapidly aged at a speed visible to the naked eye. His skin lost its luster, wrinkles appeared, and his hair turned from sallow to white. He went directly from a strong man in his 30s into the twilight years of his 50s or 60s. By the second step, he was already white-haired, his aura decaying, looking like an old man of 80 or 90 on the verge of death. Yet he himself seemed unaware. His third step had just been lifted, not yet fallen. Just then, a mountain breeze gently brushed over his body, which was already at the end of its rope, like rotten wood. The next moment, in that gentle mountain breeze, Long Yashin's body, starting from his raised foot, disintegrated and dissipated silently like sand dried by the sun, turning into countless tiny dust particles that drifted away with the wind. There was no scream, no struggle, and not even a trace left behind. A living person, in just these 3 short steps, finished a life journey that should have lasted decades, and in the end, completely returned to dust, as if he had never existed in this world. Hiss. Silence. A deathly silence shrouded the entire Shrek Academy, shrouded Spirit Hall, and shrouded the entire Douluo Continent, including the Heaven Dew Empire, Star Luo Empire, the past, and the future. Gulp. Oscar swallowed hard, his voice exceptionally clear on the silent playground. Fatty, did I see that wrong? That person, he turned to Ash. Ma Hongjun's fat face turned pale, his whole body fat trembling, and he stammered. No, didn't see wrong. 3 steps, just 3 steps. A living person, just disappeared. Tang San's forehead also oozed fine, cold sweat, and his back was also ice cold. As a genius of the Tang sect in his previous life, he had seen various strange poisons and hidden weapons, but he had never seen such a strange, direct, and overbearing way of depriving life. This was not an attack, it was more like the erasure of time. Flender's eyes behind his crystal glasses were also wide open, his voice extremely dry. Xiaogeng, is this what you called? Danger that is not even as good as a 10-year spirit beast. Yu Xiaoging's lips trembled. He did not understand either. However, Yu Xiaoging was worthy of being Yu Xiaoging. Even though he could not understand it, and his face remained deathly pale, he had forcibly suppressed the turbulent waves in his heart and explained confidently. Everyone need not be too panicked. This effect of instantly making people age and annihilate is clearly a spirit ability. It is estimated that, when we were not paying attention, someone ambushed Long Yashin. So that's how it is. For a moment, Tang San, Dai Mubai Ma Hongjun, and others suddenly realized, looking with admiration at Yu Xiaoging who analyzed things so logically. And it was not just Yu Xiaoging who had this thought. After all, people cannot understand things outside their own cognition. Therefore, even powerhouses like Bibai Dong, Kaiyan Dailiu, Mu En, and Electrolux all felt that Long Yashin must have been ambushed by someone. It's just that, looking at it this way, this shrouding the heavens world is probably not that simple. At least it has special abilities. And just at this moment, the images of the other two perspectives on the sky screen also changed. Chapter 4. Zhang Ming's Soaring Cultivation, Tang San and Yu Xiaoging's Envy. Second perspective, Wuhan Academy student, Zhang Ming, level 15. As the golden light dissipated, the solid sensation of having his feet on the ground allowed Zhang Ming, whose mind was slightly dazed, to calm down a little. He looked around and discovered that he was on a wild country path, with a small village curling with cooking smoke at the end of the road. Is this the shrouding the heavens world? Zhang Ming took a deep breath. But the next second, he was somewhat surprised. He didn't know if it was his imagination, but he felt that his body seemed to be inexplicably becoming stronger. Strange, could it be that the spirit power here is too dense, passively nourishing my physical body? Zhang Ming guessed in his heart, feeling immensely expectant. After all, if that were the case, then for someone like him with low innate spirit power and a weak physical foundation, this was undoubtedly great news. Thinking of this, Zhang Ming immediately sat cross-legged and attempted to circulate the most basic meditation technique taught by Wuhan Academy. Crack! Zhang Ming had just begun to cultivate. Instantly, it was as if the sound of breaking through a bottleneck rang out. His spirit power actually reached level 16 directly. Moreover, this surging momentum showed no signs of stopping. Level 17. Level 18. In just 3 short seconds, Zhang Ming's cultivation had broken through 3 levels at once. If not for the fact that he felt his dantians swelling and stinging, causing him to stop cultivating voluntarily, it likely wasn't the limit. This isn't a dream, it's real. Zhang Ming clenched his fists fiercely, feeling the surging spirit power within his body. The immense surprise made him almost want to roar at the sky. Douluo Continent. Following Long Yashin's bizarre transformation into ash in 3 steps, the sky screen showing Zhang Ming's almost childish, unreasonable 3-level jump in spirit power once again plunged the entire Douluo Continent into dead silence. On the Shrek Academy playground, everyone's breathing became heavy. 3 seconds, broke through 3 levels. Tang San's eyes were full of shock. How is this possible? When I went from level 15 to level 18, I suffered through months of hard work. Damn it. A Zhang Ming, with such poor foundation, can instantly increase his spirit power by 3 levels, if it were me. And compared to Tang San, the impact on Yu Xiaoging was even greater. After all, Tang San was a genius to begin with, and he just wanted to add flowers to brocade, but Yu Xiaoging had been stuck at level 29 spirit power for half his life, unable to make any progress in his cultivation. Yet now, a Zhang Ming, having only cultivated for a mere 3 seconds, caused his own spirit power to surge. If I were to go to the Shrouding the Heavens world, could I use this opportunity to break through level 29? Hu Yuhao, Tang Ya, and other spirit masters with poor aptitude were even more envious as they looked at Zhang Ming. After all, Zhang Ming's innate spirit power was clearly not high. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so old and only have a mere level 15 spirit power. But even so, he was still able to break through 3 times in 3 seconds, which made Hu Yuhao and Tang Ya wonder how they could not be envious. I must go to the Shrouding the Heavens world. Hu Yuhao clenched his fists secretly. And compared to spirit masters like Tang Sen who still needed to improve their cultivation, the figures currently standing at the very top of the Douluo Continent, such as Qian Dailiu, Bibai Dong, Chen Xin, Mu En, Elder Xuan, Dai Tian. They were even more curious. How exactly did Zhang Ming manage to do it? After all, Zhang Ming didn't eat any rare treasures. He was simply cultivating. But theoretically, even if the external spirit power were infinite, the amount of spirit power that could be absorbed into the human body in a short time was fixed. Therefore, it shouldn't be possible for his cultivation to surge in such a short time just by absorbing spirit power. They couldn't figure it out. This Shrouding the Heavens world is becoming more and more mysterious. It wasn't just Bibai Dong, Chen Xin, Qian Dailiu, and Dai Tian who couldn't figure it out. Even Zhang Ming himself was a bit confused. It seems I need to find someone to ask about the specific situation of this world. Thinking this, Zhang Ming straightened his spirit master robe and walked toward the small village with curling smoke ahead. Soon, Zhang Ming arrived at the entrance of the small village. He had just wanted to find someone to inquire about the situation, but at this moment, a little boy of about 7 or 8 years old, wearing coarse cloth clothes and with snot bubbles hanging on his face, clutched a flower emitting a faint blue halo in his hand, hopping and skipping as he passed by Zhang Ming, looking like he was returning to the village. Zhang Ming originally didn't want to bother, as what could a child know? But he subconsciously glanced at that flower, and it made Zhang Ming unable to look away anymore. The flower resembled an orchid, deep blue all over, and it seemed as if glistening water flowed on the petals. It was clearly not an ordinary object at a glance. And what shocked Zhang Ming even more was, when the little boy ran past him, a wisp of extremely elegant floral fragrance drifted with the wind and entered his nose. In an instant, Zhang Ming only felt the level 18 spirit power barrier in his dantian loosen slightly, as if it could break through to level 19 at any moment. Zhang Ming was dumbfounded, instantly stopped in his tracks, and turned his head sharply. He stared intently at the blue, strange flower in the little boy's hand. I just broke through to level 18, and now, just by smelling a wisp of floral fragrance, it has such a miraculous effect. If I were to consume the whole plant. What this child is holding is definitely a top-tier heaven and earth treasure of this world. For a moment, Zhang Ming was immensely excited. He remembered that before his departure, the Supreme Pontiff Bibai Dong had personally received him, asking him to collect all fortunes and opportunities for the Spirit Hall as much as possible, and that the benefits would definitely not be lacking for him. And now, the opportunity was right before his eyes. Thinking of this, Zhang Ming looked at the little boy ahead. "Kid, stop. The item in your hand is destined for me." At this moment, Zhang Ming looked ferocious, and he had even prepared to make a move to snatch it by force. After all, this was just a low-level world, and it was the honor of these savage natives to offer everything to him, a deity from the higher-level Douluo Continent plane. Douluo Continent, Shrek Academy Playground. Yu Xiaogang had now regained his calm, once again appearing like a master detached from the world. He stood with his hands behind his back, watching Zhang Ming and the little boy on the sky screen live broadcast. This child looks to be 8 or 9 years old, yet there isn't a shred of spirit power fluctuation on his body. It seems that although there is cultivation in this Shrouding the Heavens world, the cultivation system must be extremely backward. It really is just a low-level world. Long Yashin was just purely unlucky and was ambushed, while Zhang Ming's luck is very good. Not only has his cultivation surged, but he also encountered such a heaven and earth treasure. Xiao Wu, Ning Rongrong, Ma Hongjun, Dai Mubai, and others nodded in agreement as they listened to Yu Xiaoging's analysis. And in Tang San's eyes, there was nothing but envy. After all, Tang San was not Yu Xiaoging. He knew herbs very well, so as he watched Zhang Ming, he sighed inwardly again. His luck is more than just good. The herb in the child's hand likely had medicinal power not inferior to some top-tier medicine kings that were several hundred years old. At this moment, it wasn't just Tang San who envied Zhang Ming. 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School, Speed Clan Dugubo, Chrysanthemum Douluo Muan, Zhuang Yusin. As long as they understood some pharmacology and could see how extraordinary the orchid in the child's hand was, they were all immensely envious. But the next second, in their eyes, a flash of astonishment appeared one after another. You say, there's a pile of such rare treasures. Chapter 5. You call this a weed? Tang San's mentality collapses. Shrouding the Heavens World, village entrance. The snot-nosed little boy, Wang Erniu, was suddenly stopped by Zhang Ming and startled. Upon hearing Zhang Ming's words, he blinked his innocent, large eyes, raised the blue orchid in his hand, and asked naively, "Big brother, do you want this water orchid?" Water orchid? Zhang Ming was stunned. I didn't expect such a top-tier heaven and earth treasure to have such a rustic name. However, he quickly stopped dwelling on it. After all, a name is just a label. What he cared more about was whether he could obtain this water orchid. Therefore, Zhang Ming smiled at Wang Erniu, but secretly prepared to unleash his spirit ability at any moment, saying, "Yes, little friend. A treasure of this level is not something you can handle. Give it to Big Brother." Treasure? Wang Erniu was slightly stunned. He sniffed hard at his runny nose, revealing a toothless gap in his front teeth, and grinned. "Big Brother, you really love to tease people. Isn't this just a water orchid? In the big pond on the west side of our village, they are everywhere. What kind of treasure is this?" In the pond, everywhere, Zhang Ming's pupils constricted. However, his first reaction was disbelief. After all, how could such a heaven and earth treasure be everywhere like weeds? On the Douluo Continent, Tang San also subconsciously shook his head. Impossible. Even if they are all water orchids, the difference in age and quality can be vast. A wild century-old ginseng and a one-year artificially grown ginseng are both ginseng, but how can their effects be compared? The everywhere this child speaks of is likely just ordinary goods. The one in his hand must be a mutation or a top-quality item with a very long age. Yu Xiaoging, Dai Mubai, and the others nodded upon hearing this, fully believing in Tang San's analysis. After all, how could heaven and earth treasures grow in patches? However, seeing that Zhang Ming didn't believe him, Wang Erniu enthusiastically said, "Big brother, you don't believe me? Then I'll take you to see. It's not far ahead." With that, Wang Erniu took the lead and ran towards a pond not far from the west end of the village. Zhang Ming, half doubting, quickly followed. Soon, passing through a small forest, a clear pond of considerable size appeared before their eyes. And when Zhang Ming saw the scene by the pond, he was struck as if by lightning, standing frozen on the spot, his mind going completely blank. In the center of the pond, a dense patch of blue orchids was growing, all of them the same kind of water orchid as the one in Wang Erniu's hand. Because there were so many, when Zhang Ming looked, the pond appeared as a vast expanse of blue. This is impossible," Zhang Ming exclaimed, his voice trembling. He felt that his worldview, values, and understanding of heaven and earth treasure had been completely overturned in that moment. Douluo Continent. Everyone who saw this scene through the sky screen also collectively lost their voices, falling into immense shock and disbelief. Shrek Academy. Tang Sen widened his eyes, operating his purple demon eye to the extreme, staring fixedly at that sea of blue flowers. trying to find the difference between these water orchids and the one in Wang Erniu's hand. But soon, his heart was filled with despair, his lips trembling. How could it be? There really are so many. And looking at their form and luster, each one seems to contain a not weak energy fluctuation. This. The confident smile on Yu Xiaoging's face also completely froze, replaced by extreme confusion and embarrassment. Is a world that can give birth to so many, heaven and earth treasure, really a low-level world? Ma Hongzhen even forgot to wipe the drool running down his mouth. Oh, my dear mother, if all of these were picked back, wouldn't I be able to eat my way directly to titled Douluo? Oscar muttered, Fatty, stop dreaming, but this is too exaggerated, right? 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. The folding fan in Ning Fengzhai's hand closed with a snap, his breathing rapid, and an unprecedented sharp light erupted in his eyes. A field of medicinal herbs. No, it's wild. A wild cluster of top-tier spiritual plant. As he spoke, he looked at the 2 elders beside him. Sword Douluo, Bone Douluo, did you see that? If we could collect all of these water orchids. Sword Douluo and Bone Douluo also had grave expressions, their eyes filled with shock. They had lived for decades and had seen many rare treasures, but when had they ever seen such a scale of spiritual plant, suspected of being able to promote spirit power growth, growing together? For a long time, Ning Fengzhai looked at the sky screen and sighed repeatedly. Unexpectedly, this savage world known as Shrouding the Heavens world actually has so many spiritual items. It's a pity that no one from my 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School was chosen. Sword Douluo took a deep breath, finally coming back to his senses, and nodded slightly. Indeed a pity. After all, these water orchids are all extraordinary. If we could mass-produce them or find more, it would be of great benefit to the sect's disciples. Bone Douluo smiled. Fengzhai, you don't need to be too regretful. The sky screen rules said the first batch was 3 people, but now one has fallen. Presumably, it won't really wait 3 months to replenish the quota. Perhaps there will be new opportunities soon. Ning Fengzhai nodded slightly. I hope so. Similar thoughts also appeared in the minds of the high-level officials of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Clan, Heaven Dew Empire, Star Luo Empire, Sun Moon Empire, Holy Spirit Cult, Spirit Pagoda, and almost all major sect forces. Zhang Ming's good luck made them covet this, shrouding the heavens world even more. And just at this moment, in the sky screen, Erniu, time to come home for dinner. From within the village, the voice of an adult suddenly called out. Upon hearing this, Wang Erniu quickly responded, then casually shoved the water orchid in his hand into the hand of the still shocked and dazed Zhang Ming. Big brother, if you like it, I'll give this to you too. My mom is calling me for dinner. Give it to me. Zhang Ming was slightly stunned. Yes, my mom said not to keep bringing these weeds home, otherwise they will take root and sprout in the yard, stealing the nutrients from the crops. After saying this, Wang Erniu hopped and skipped back to the village. In place, only Zhang Ming was left, clutching the blue water orchid in his hand, standing there as if petrified, Wang Erniu's words echoing repeatedly in his ears. Weed. Stealing the nutrients from the crops. Zhang Ming lowered his head, looking at this spiritual plant in his hand, which would be enough to cause spirit elder and even spirit ancestor level powerhouses to fight over it on the Douluo Continent, and then looked up at the spectacular blue sea of flowers by the pond. For a moment, an extremely absurd and unreal feeling surged into his heart. And the entire Douluo Continent was now plunged into an eerie silence. Countless spirit masters, whether they were high and mighty titled Douluo or bottom-tier spirit scholar, were all looking at that patch of weeds on the sky screen, and then thinking about how they or their forces usually had to spend huge sums of money or fight desperately for a single herb that was only a few decades old. Damn it! They were red-eyed, their defenses broken. And just at this moment, the third-person perspective screen belonging to Zhu Zhuking on the sky screen brightened slightly, attracting the attention of some people. Chapter 6. Zhu Zhuking's curiosity. Is Heavenly Emperor equal to titled Douluo? Third perspective. Shrek Academy student, Zhu Zhuking, level 27. Eastern Wasteland, Qingfeng Town. Sunlight filtered through sparse clouds, spilling onto the bluestone paved streets. Zhu Zhuking walked slowly out of a dark, damp alley, her cat-like eyes scanning the surroundings with curiosity and vigilance. Is this the shrouding the heavens world? Zhu Zhuking muttered to herself. Aside from the clothing and architectural style, it doesn't seem that different from Douluo Continent. To Zhu Zhuking's disappointment, she couldn't sense even a trace of spirit power from the passers-by on the street. It seems this world is truly as Grandmaster analyzed, just a low-level world. It doesn't even have spirits. Zhu Zhuking sighed softly, a glimmer of despondency flashing in her eyes. She had originally hoped that this strange world would hold an opportunity for her to become stronger quickly. After all, she had reasons she had to become stronger. But now it seemed that this world, which didn't even have spirit masters, was far too backward compared to Douluo Continent. In such a low-level world, there certainly won't be many opportunities, and even if there are, I doubt they'll have much value, right? Zhu Zhuking shook her head helplessly. Makabaka. Just then, Zhu Zhuking suddenly heard a commotion coming from ahead. She saw a group of people gathered in front of a tall white jade stele, excitedly discussing something while facing the stele. At first, listening to their discussion, Zhu Zhuking couldn't understand anything at all. But suddenly, some basic information regarding the language and script of this world appeared in her mind. Is this the power of the sky screen? Zhu Zhuking let out a sigh of relief. That solves a big problem. Now that she could understand the language of the people in this world, Zhu Zhuking quietly approached the crowd, wanting to gather some intelligence. From the journey from Star Luo Empire to Shrek Academy, Zhu Zhuking had long been accustomed to scouting detailed information, first whenever she arrived at an unfamiliar place. If not for this caution, she felt that on this journey, she would have died at her sister's hands countless times already. Hey, I hope I can pass the selection and ascend to White Jade Capital to serve Emperor Heyotian. A young girl wearing a pink dress looked at the stele in front, her eyes filled with longing. Another girl in green also had eyes full of anticipation. Woo-woo-woo, I heard that Emperor Heyotian is a rare beauty among men in this world. If I could be favored by Emperor Heyotian, I want to become an empress too. Just you, forget it. A slightly mature female voice interrupted their fantasies. Every 10 years, Lady Gaiyu selects a batch of women with the best luck from the entire eastern wasteland to go and serve Emperor Heyotian. But even among the prodigies of the major holy lands and noble families, in all these years, only that Jai family imperial princess caught Emperor Heyotian's Dharma eye and was kept as an exception. No one else has been an exception. All were sent back after 10 years. Do you think you can be compared to that once-in-a-millennium beauty and prodigy from the Jai family? The girl in green looked slightly dejected upon hearing this. Sigh, I know, but one still has to have dreams, right? Besides, even if I can't become an empress, as long as I can successfully pass the selection, I can obtain a cultivation technique and become a fairy. I can't miss this no matter what. White Jade Capital, Emperor Heyotian, Empress Cultivation Technique. What do all these terms mean? Heavenly Emperor. Could it be the monarch of an imperial dynasty? Carrying her doubts, Zhu Zhuking slowly squeezed into the crowd. She wanted to see what these people were looking at. Soon, Zhu Zhuking squeezed to the front of the crowd. Instantly, her pupils constricted. She discovered that the stele in front was actually a golden light screen, somewhat similar to the sky screen above the firmament of Douluo Continent, though not as gigantic. Zhu Zhuking was somewhat surprised. It seems this world also has the existence of spirits. After all, such a light screen could definitely not be created by ordinary people. Perhaps I should learn about the factions of this world. Thinking this, Zhu Zhuqing gently touched the arm of the girl in pink beside her and asked curiously, "Excuse me, young miss, is this heavenly emperor you speak of the monarch of this empire?" Monarch. Hearing Zhu Zhuqing's words, suppressed snickers suddenly erupted around her, and at the same time, a flash of surprise appeared in their eyes. After all, that was Emperor Heashan, the emperor who had ruled this world for 10,000 years and was revered by all races. Especially in their eastern wasteland, because it was the hometown of Emperor Heashan, they received extra protection from Emperor Heashan. Therefore, even a young child of a few years old had heard the supreme prestige of Emperor Heashan. Could she be from the outer regions? That was possible. After all, not every region was as lucky as their eastern wasteland to be favored by Emperor Heashan. Thinking this, the girl in pink proudly introduced to Zhu Zhuqing, "Emperor Heashan is the co-ruler of the heavenly court, a supreme existence who suppressed an era. How could a mere monarch compare to him?" Douluo Continent, inside Spirit Hall. Watching the live perspective of Zhu Zhuqing on the sky screen, Chrysanthemum Douluo was somewhat curious. Co-ruler of the heavenly court. Bibai Dong frowned slightly, lost in thought, and said, "It should mean the co-ruler of the world, right? For example, in our Douluo Continent, there are two major empires, Star Luo Empire and Heaven Du Empire. And this person called Emperor Heashan should be the monarch of the empire that completed the unification of the continent. And White Jade Capital should be his imperial palace." Chrysanthemum Douluo heard this and realized, "Your Eminence is wise." It wasn't just Bibai Dong who had such thoughts. At Shrek Academy, Yu Xiaogeng Tang San Dai Mubai and others also felt it should be so. Just then, Ning Rongrong muttered, "The girl just said that this Emperor Heashan suppressed an era. It sounds very powerful. Could it be that the title for a titled Douluo in this world is Heavenly Emperor?" PFFD tilde. Yu Xiaogeng immediately scoffed. Although that world has some heaven and earth treasures, there are so many passers-by, and not a single one is a spirit master. In such a world, can a titled Douluo be born? Maybe. This so-called Emperor Heashan might just be a spirit Douluo, or even a spirit saint or spirit emperor. Tang Sen nodded in agreement, curious in his heart. "I wonder if this so-called Emperor Heashan can withstand one strike of my Buddha's fury, Tang Lotus." And Dai Mubai, at this moment, had a flash of surprise in his eyes. "Zhuqing, what is she going to do?" "What is Zhu Zhuqing going to do?" Hearing Dai Mubai's words, everyone curiously looked back at the sky screen broadcast. In the broadcast screen, the middle-aged woman who had just lectured the two infatuated girls looked at Zhu Zhuqing and nodded slightly. She couldn't help but praise, "Little girl, you have good potential. Natural little beauties like you who haven't changed their faces through cultivation technique generally have decent luck and are more likely to be selected by the heavenly court. How about it? Any interest in signing up?" Chapter 7, Why is Boss Dai's Head So Green? Cultivation, Mystical Moon Goddess Sutra. Sign up to become a handmaiden for this so-called heavenly emperor. Zhu Zhuqing didn't even think about it. She subconsciously wanted to refuse. After all, she was Zhu Zhuqing, an existence who aimed to become a titled Douluo in the future, and she had always been working hard for it. Coming to this strange shrouding the heavens world now was for the sake of finding an opportunity to grow stronger and completely break free from the shackles of her family and fate. It was not to compromise and humble herself to serve as a handmaiden for some heavenly emperor she had never met, doing work that involved waiting on others. This ran completely counter to her original intention of pursuing power and wanting to control her own fate. But, just as the words of refusal were about to slip out, she forced herself to stop. "As long as I successfully pass the selection for handmaidens, I can obtain a cultivation technique and become a fairy." What was cultivation? Zhu Zhuqing didn't know. but she knew the term cultivation technique. After all, what she was currently practicing was the high-level meditation technique passed down by the Zhu family. Perhaps I can sign up and give it a try, see what this so-called cultivation technique is, and then leave. Anyway, with my speed, if I want to leave, these ordinary people have no way of stopping me. Where do I sign up? In the end, Zhu Zhuking nodded, her voice still cold and clear. Douluo Continent, Shrek Academy. Seeing that Zhu Zhuking had actually nodded and agreed to the invitation to be a handmaiden for that heavenly emperor, Yu Xiaogang's expression instantly became very strange. He subconsciously looked towards Dai Mubai. After all, Zhu Zhuking was his fiancée. Although their relationship was currently very delicate due to Dai Mubai's philandering, their status was, after all, still there. But now, don't forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share to AI Otaku Studio. Zhu Zhuking had gone to that strange, low-level small world and was actually preparing to be a handmaiden for the heavenly emperor. What is a handmaiden? The handmaidens in the Heaven Dew Imperial Palace didn't just simply attend to their master's daily needs. When the master had needs, they also had to offer themselves. Beside him, Tang San's expression was also incredibly colorful. Looking at Dai Mubai, his eyes were full of sympathy. He didn't even know if it was his imagination, but he always felt that Boss Dai's head seemed to be faintly glowing green. Poor Boss Dai. Thinking this, Tang Sen looked gently at Xiao Wu beside him. If it were Xiao Wu who went to that world, she would absolutely never do such a thing. Go and be a handmaiden for that whatever heavenly emperor. In Tang San's eyes, there was nothing but confidence. Ma Hongzhen and Oscar also looked at each other, their faces full of confusion. Ma Hongzhen couldn't help but whisper, "What is Zhuking thinking?" In a small world where there aren't even many spirit masters, instead of thinking about quickly searching for rare flowers, exotic herbs, or special minerals to take away, she actually wants to be a handmaiden for the natives. As for Dai Mubai, he looked at the pitying gazes everyone cast at him, still hugging his arms, his face full of confidence. You don't understand Zhuking. She has a proud personality. How could she sincerely go and be a handmaiden for that whatever heavenly emperor? The reason she agreed must be because she has her own considerations. Just wait and see. It seemed that, in order to increase the credibility of his words. If you don't believe me, let's make a bet. Zhuking will definitely leave in a moment. If I lose, I will strip naked and run 10 laps on the playground. If I win, you only need to give me 1 gold coin. How about it? Oscar and Ma Hongzhen were still hesitating, but Ning Rongrong, who feared no chaos, immediately clapped her hands in excitement. A bet, fun, I accept. Dai Mubai remained confident. It's a deal. He didn't believe for a second that his proud and cold fiancée would go and be a handmaiden for this unknown heavenly emperor. They were actually looking at him with pity. Just wait to have your faces slapped. Shrouding the Heavens World, King Feng Town. Just as the Shrek group was discussing, Zhu Zhuking's face was currently filled with a strange expression. She had already passed the assessment and was successfully selected. The female official in charge of the assessment simply took a look at her face and bone age, confirming there were no traces of modification through any cultivation technique. Afterwards, she let her place both hands on a white crystal ball. The female official said, "His Excellency the Heavenly Emperor is not demanding regarding aptitude. Everything follows fate, and he only values luck." As a result, when Zhu Zhuking placed her hands on the crystal ball actually emitted a purple light. Then, the woman opposite her had a face full of surprise, not knowing what she was whispering into a jade pendant. In the end, she had passed the assessment just like that, in a daze. At this moment, the female official in charge of her assessment smiled and spoke. "Little girl, your name is Zhu Zhuking, right? Congratulations on passing the preliminary selection for Heavenly Court handmaidens." As she spoke, She took out a palm-sized, crystal-clear jade slip and handed it to Zhu Yuking. I observe that there are no spiritual power fluctuations in your aura, only a trace of extremely weak and low-quality energy remnants. You must be practicing some kind of extremely substandard technique. Now that you have entered the heavenly court, that kind of inferior cultivation technique can be discarded. This is the mystical Moon Goddess Sutra that all heavenly court handmaidens can practice. You should study it well. Mystical Moon Goddess Sutra. Zhu Yuking took the jade slip. It felt cool to the touch. But she looked it over again and again. The jade slip was smooth as a mirror, without any text, and it didn't look like it recorded any technique at all. And seeming to see Zhu Yuking's confusion, the female official smiled slightly and explained. Yuking, you have not yet opened your bitter sea or given birth to a divine thought, so you cannot read it using divine thought. Therefore, you need to press the jade slip against your forehead, concentrate your mind, and calm your breath to perceive the scriptures recorded within. Like this, Zhu Yuking realized, and at the same time felt a bit curious. Is this mystical moon goddess sutra the so-called cultivation technique? Is it better than our Zhu family's high-level meditation technique? Thinking this, Zhu Yuking pressed the jade slip against her forehead. And at the same time, far above the 9 heavens, within a massive floating war fortress, white jade capital, suspended above the peak of a sea of clouds, with palaces stretching out like a fairyland. In a quiet palace shrouded by hazy moonlight, imperial daughter Jai Zi of the Jai family, dressed in purple court attire, with a stunning appearance and a temperament as cold as the fairy of the Moon Palace, was sitting cross-legged on a jade couch, cultivating with her eyes closed. Suddenly, the void realm before her rippled slightly, and a communication jade slip lit up with a soft glow. Jai Zi slowly opened her eyes, which were as bright as the stars, and tapped with her jade-like finger. At the edge of the eastern wasteland, in Qingfeng Town, a girl named Zhu Yuking has been found, with no cultivation, bone age about 12, manifesting purple luck. She is actually a girl, favored by the heavenly Tao. Jai Zi whispered to herself, her voice as cold and clear as a jade chime. Apart from those prodigy noble girls of the imperial clans, such luck could actually be born among ordinary mortals. This is truly a strange matter. She pondered slightly, radiance flowing from her fingertips, and left a mark on the communication jade slip. This girl is quite strange. Perhaps she should be noted. After she understands the rules of white jade capital, transfer her into white jade capital and report the information to Sister Gayu. Chapter 8. Shocked Zhu Yuking is this cultivating immortality. Third perspective Shrek Academy student, Zhu Yuking ranked 27. The jade slip touched her forehead, feeling extremely icy. Zhu Yuking felt a clear stream suddenly surge into her sea of consciousness from between her brows. In an instant, the world shifted. The external world she had originally seen, the gentle gaze of the female official, the subtle surrounding clamor, the solid tactile sensation of the ground beneath her feet, all vanished in that moment. Replacing it was a vast scene that could not be described in words. She saw herself standing upon a boundless golden ocean, ripples gently swaying beneath her fair feet. Every drop of seawater contained an indescribable life essence, making her feel unprecedented comfort and peace. Looking up, the firmament was neither day nor night, but a deep, starry sky with a bright, pristine moon hanging in the center, untainted by even a speck of dust. Its clear radiance spilled down, plating the entire golden ocean with a holy silver edge. And between this bright moon and the golden ocean, countless golden characters emitting ancient and profound auras floated quietly, slowly circulating like stars possessing life. Just as Zhu Yuking felt incomparably shocked by the wonders in her sea of consciousness, a man's voice, clear as jade striking jade, seemed to descend from the 9 heavens, or perhaps resound directly within her heart. At the beginning of the Tao, chaos first separated. Living beings were ignorant, unaware of immortality. The mystical Moon Goddess Sutra is to draw upon the essence of moonlight to build the foundation of the Tao. The man's voice was not loud, yet it carried an indescribable majesty and Tao rhyme. Every word uttered could cause the surrounding golden characters to tremble slightly, reflecting off the bright moon. This voice slowly explained what it meant to cultivate immortality. It is to seize the creation of heaven and earth, to invade the profound mysteries of the sun and moon, to act against the heavens, seeking to transcend life and death, and to attain eternity. What is the bitter sea? It is the sea of imprisonment formed by the human life wheel being eroded by time and entangled by karma. The first step of cultivating immortality is to open the bitter sea and release the imprisoned life essence. What is the life spring, the center of the bitter sea, where the life wheel resides, the source of divine force? What is the divine bridge, the path that crosses the bitter sea and connects to the other shore, the first leap in the level of life? What is the other shore, transcending the bitter sea, reaching a new level of life with a greatly increased lifespan? Afterward, there are the 5 realms of the Tao Palace, cultivating the heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys, corresponding to the 5 elements, nourishing the 5 spirits. It is an important secret realm for cultivating the human body. This voice not only described the realms, but also contained a trace of exposition on the laws of the Tao. For Zhu Zhuqing, who had always cultivated spirit power and was limited to the spirit system, this was simply pushing open a door to a brand new world. The owner of this voice had not revealed their appearance at all. Yet, relying solely on this clear, composed voice filled with Tao rhyme, Zhu Zhuqing's heart involuntarily outlined the image of a young heavenly emperor, peerless in grace, dressed in snow white, gathering all the spiritual beauty of heaven and earth in one body. He was so transcendent, like an immortal exiled from heaven, his gaze like the starry sky. A young man of this world, the white moonlight in the heavens. Perhaps only such an existence is worthy of being called the heavenly emperor. She did not know how much time had passed, perhaps an instant, perhaps an eternity. The clear voice gradually dissipated, and the surrounding golden characters, the bright moon, and the phantom of the bitter sea also slowly faded away. Zhu Zhuqing's consciousness returned to her body. She was still standing in the same spot, the jade slip still pressed against her brow, but that icy sensation had already disappeared. She parted her red lips slightly, her beautiful eyes filled with trance and disbelief. Everything she had experienced in her sea of consciousness earlier was like the deepest brand, incomparably clear. This is cultivating immortality. Zhu Zhuqing muttered to herself, but her voice carried a trace of trembling she hadn't even noticed. Bitter sea, life spring, divine bridge, other shore, Tao Palace. These terms represented a path of cultivating immortality that was completely different from the spirit master system she knew. A path that was more vast and pointed directly toward becoming an immortal. The Tao Palace realm, the cultivation technique explicitly mentioned that those who achieve it can have a lifespan of 500 to 1,000 years. Zhu Zhuqing took a deep breath, her delicate body trembling uncontrollably. 500, 1,000 years. She thought of Douluo Continent, where the strongest titled Douluo were said to have a lifespan of only around 200 years. Yet this was already the end point that countless spirit masters dreamed of. But in this world, the Tao Palace realm with a lifespan of 500 to 1,000 years seemed to be merely the introductory stage of cultivating immortality. And the 4 poles realm above it, cultivating the 4 limbs, reaching the 4 poles of heaven and earth, comprehending the great Tao of heaven and earth, could have a lifespan of 1,000 to 1,500 years. The dragon transformation realm, cultivating the spine, making each segment like a true dragon awakening, releasing potential layer by layer. The lifespan could even reach 1,500 to 2,000 years. As for what came after, although the information in the cultivation technique stopped abruptly, Zhu Zhuqing believed it wasn't that there was nothing after, but that the part of the mystical Moon Goddess Sutra, taught to maids, only went up to this point. Zhu Zhuqing did not doubt for a moment that the dragon transformation realm was by no means the end of this world. There must be even more terrifying and longer-lasting realms ahead. Grandmaster, you were wrong, you were dead wrong. Zhu Zhuqing was incomparably excited and thrilled at this moment, shouting loudly in her heart, her cold, pretty face flushed with excessive excitement. Where is this some low-level, small world? Where is this a place with few spirit masters? The Shrouding the Heavens world is a supreme, great world whose dimensional level far surpasses that of Douluo Continent. Before, Zhu Zhuqing had thought, after reading the so-called cultivation technique of this world, she would compare it with her Zhu family's high-level meditation technique to see which was stronger, and then leave without hesitation. But now, no. Zhu Zhuqing clearly realized what kind of heaven-defying opportunity was placed before her. She didn't want to leave anymore. She wanted to become stronger. She wanted to change her fate. Isn't it just being a maid? To become stronger, she was willing to pay any price to grasp this opportunity that was enough to change her own fate and that of her entire family. Opposite her, Jiang Wanwen, who had been quietly observing Zhu Zhuqing. She looked at Zhu Zhuqing's eyes, which went from trance to shock, then to excitement, and finally turned into determination, and couldn't help but chuckle in her heart. She had long seen that this young girl before her had been unwilling when she first arrived and was not sincere, but so what? She had seen too many similar situations. Even she herself had been like that in the beginning. But as long as one had personally experienced the profoundness of the heavenly emperor passing down the Dharma, and realized the vastness of the Tao of cultivating immortality, one would never choose to leave again. As expected, Jiang Wanwen smiled and said to Zhu Zhuqing, Zhuqing, since you have already received the Dharma from Lord Heavenly Emperor, you can be considered half a member of the Heavenly Court. My name is Jiang Wanwen. You can call me Deacon or Sister Wanwen. Your situation is special, and your luck is extraordinary, so there is no need to wait here. I will take you back to White Emperor City first. As she spoke, she stood up and headed toward the outside of the city where the moon-escaping immortal palace was parked. Upon hearing this, Zhu Zhuqing quickly followed, nodding vigorously with excitement as she agreed. Yes, Sister Wanwen. Walking on the bustling street, Zhu Zhuqing couldn't help but look at the gentle-tempered Jiang Wanwen beside her. Unable to suppress the curiosity in her heart, she asked in a low voice, Sister Wanwen, do you know just how strong Lord Heavenly Emperor is? Is he a peak expert of the 9 transformations of the dragon? Chapter 9. Meeting the Heavenly Emperor is like a mayfly seeing the azure sky. Boss die, be strong. Laugh, Jiang Wanwen couldn't help but chuckle at these words. She shook her head, looking at Zhu Zhuqing with a smile that carried a sense of watching an ignorant young girl. Little girl, your curiosity is quite large, but your horizons are still a bit narrow. A mere 9 transformations of the dragon. An existence that cannot even defeat me. How could it be mentioned in the same breath as His Majesty the Heavenly Emperor? What? Zhu Zhuqing gasped sharply, her footsteps faltering subconsciously. Her beautiful eyes widened, filled with shock. A powerhouse of the dragon transformation realm, actually. Could not even defeat this Sister Wanwen, who looked so gentle and kind in front of her. To think she had previously thought she was just an ordinary person, and had even considered using her speed to force her way out. At the thought of this, Zhu Zhuqing couldn't help but reveal a wry smile. She really was. Jiang Wanwen didn't pay attention to Zhu Zhuqing's reaction. She slightly raised her head, looking at the azure, clear sky, her gaze becoming distant and filled with admiration. Zhuqing, if you had never cultivated. Hearing of His Majesty, the Heavenly Emperor is like a frog in a well looking at the bright moon in the sky. But when you cultivate diligently in the future and have the fortune to step into the immortal platform realm, becoming a great power, a king, a saint, praised and worshipped by the common people of this world. At that time, when you look at His Majesty again, Jiang Wanwen withdrew her gaze, looked at Zhu Zhuqing, and said word by word, It is like a mayfly seeing the azure sky. Before cultivating, hearing the emperor's name is like a frog in a well looking at the moon in the sky. After reaching the immortal platform realm, becoming a powerhouse praised and worshipped by the common people of the world, looking at the emperor's face, it is like a mayfly seeing the azure sky. This is, what a huge gap. This is, what an incredible realm. Zhu Zhuqing stood completely stunned on the spot, her mind blank, with only Jiang Wanwen's shocking words echoing repeatedly. She had originally thought. She had overestimated the power of that heavenly emperor as much as possible. But now, she understood that the limit of her imagination probably hadn't even touched the tip of the iceberg of the other party's strength. For a moment, Zhu Zhuqing held the jade slip in her hand tightly. Her heart was filled with infinite longing for that heavenly emperor, whom she had never met. I will not only cultivate this mystical moon goddess sutra, but I will also work hard to move upwards within this heavenly court, to see for myself what kind of peerless elegance that heavenly emperor, whom Sister Wanwen respects so much, possesses. The goal of changing the fate of the women of the Zhu family in the Star Luo Empire, who must kill each other, no longer seemed out of reach. Douluo Continent, Shrek Academy. That heavenly emperor is so domineering, becoming a powerhouse praised and worshipped by the common people of the world, looking at the emperor's face. It is like a mayfly seeing the azure sky. Ning Rongrong watched the sky screen live broadcast, her eyes full of amazement. Xiao Wu also nodded subconsciously. Is that heavenly emperor really that strong? Strong. Yu Xiaoging still looked disdainful, firmly believing his deduction was correct. People from this other world really haven't seen the world. Aren't they afraid of twisting their tongues by bragging? Wait until the day they see the titled Douluo of our Douluo continent. Will they regret their words today? For a moment, Yu Xiaoging was full of anticipation. Only Dai Mubai. At this moment, Dai Mubai stared fixedly at Zhu Zhuqing in the sky screen live broadcast. That bitch Zhu Zhuqing, what exactly does she want to do? Does she really want to be a maid for that so-called heavenly emperor? He saw that Zhu Zhuqing had no intention of leaving at all. Instead, after reading that so-called cultivation technique, she left with that female official in extreme excitement. It seemed she really was going to be a maid for that heavenly emperor. For a moment, Dai Mubai's face was livid and extremely ugly. He didn't even know if it was his imagination, but he felt like he had an extra hat on his head, and it was green. Someone was singing in his ear. The celebratory wine has been opened for you. Please don't be too arrogant. Seeing this, Yu Xiaoging, Tang San Ma Hongjun, Oscar, Xiao Wu, and Ning Rongrong looked at Dai Mubai with pity. Finally, Yu Xiaoging slowly walked forward and patted Dai Mubai's shoulder. 1,000 words turned into a sigh. Be strong, Mubai. Soon, Tang San also walked over, opened his mouth, wanting to say some words of comfort. But he found that any language at this moment seemed so hollow, and in the end, he could only imitate his teacher and pat Dai Mubai's other shoulder. Be strong, boss Dai. Be strong. Next were Oscar, Ma Hongjun, Xiao Wu, and Ning Rongrong. Seeing this, Dai Mubai forced a smile at the corner of his mouth. I believe in Zhuqing. She definitely has her own ideas. Although Dai Mubai said this, he no longer had his previous confidence. After all, Zhu Zhuqing was already on her way to the heavenly emperor's palace. Dai Mubai could only hold on to a glimmer of hope. After all, the Zhu Zhuqing he knew had been extremely proud since childhood and could give everything to become stronger. How could such a person willingly go to be a maid for an indigenous emperor? I'm wrong. We must have all thought wrong. Zhuqing is still lurking. Yes, that's it. Dai Mubai nodded forcefully. Star Luo Empire, deep in the Zhu family mansion. Bang! With a loud noise, the fine sandalwood table turned into powder under the violent spirit power. The current head of the Zhu family, Spirit Cat Duke Zhu Hengfeng, had his hair standing on end, and the powerful aura of a spirit Douluo spread uncontrollably. Disgrace, a huge disgrace. He stared fixedly at the live broadcast on the sky screen, his eyes burning with rage. That was the anger of family dignity being trampled, and the disappointment of hatting iron for not becoming steel. The face of my Zhu family, the face of the Star Luo Empire's royal family, has all been lost by this rebellious daughter. Zhu Hengfeng roared. On the side, a beautiful woman who still possessed charm and looked somewhat similar to Zhu Zhuqing had a face full of confusion and worry. She stepped forward and persuaded softly. "Husband, please calm down. Zhuqing, that child has had her own ideas since she was young. Perhaps she has some other thoughts." Other thoughts? Zhu Hengfeng was still extremely angry. "I didn't see other thoughts. I only saw my daughter, Zhu Hengfeng's daughter, the future imperial concubine of the Star Luo Empire. In front of all living beings in the entire Douluo Continent, in an unknown indigenous world, she wants to be a maid for an inexplicable heavenly emperor." The more Zhu Hengfeng spoke, the angrier he became. He slammed the precious jade cup in his hand to the ground, and fragments splashed everywhere. "My Zhu family does not have such a daughter. When she comes back in 3 months, see if I don't break her legs. Confine her, and she will never be able to go to that shrouding the heavens world again, and never step out of the Zhu family gate." Hearing that her husband wanted to use family law, the beautiful woman's worry deepened. She knew her husband's strength well. If he really got angry, how could Zhuqing endure it? And just above the Douluo Continent, while everyone was confused about Zhu Zhuqing's behavior of choosing to be a maid, curious about what she saw in that jade slip, and guessing what cultivation meant. Second perspective, Wuhan Academy student, Zhang Ming, level 19. There, changes had also occurred. Chapter 10, Zhang Ming's ambition, you call this a beast. Second perspective, Wuhan Academy student, Zhang Ming, level 19. Eastern wilderness. A common little mountain village, by the pond. Phew. Zhang Ming exhaled, wiping the sweat from his forehead with satisfaction. In the pond, the water orchids that had crowded the surface were gone, leaving only clear water and a few broken leaves. On his back was a bulging bundle made from clothes. Inside, it was filled with water orchids, which he regarded as heaven and earth treasure. So many. Zhang Ming weighed the heavy harvest on his back, his face beaming with irrepressible excitement. "When I return to the Douluo Continent and present all of this to the Supreme Pontiff, the Supreme Pontiff will surely reward me handsomely. Perhaps I might even be taken as a personal disciple by the Supreme Pontiff. By then, the so-called Golden Generation, that Zai Yue, that Yan, will all be trampled under my feet. I, Zhang Ming, will also become famous across the continent." Thinking of the future, where he would be respected and followed by crowds just like Zai Yu and Yan, Zhang Ming felt full of energy. Then he looked around. This little mountain village doesn't seem to have much value left. Time to set off. I must make the most of these 3 months to explore thoroughly and bring back more surprises for the Supreme Pontiff. Having made up his mind, Zhang Ming shouldered the large bundle of water orchids. He walked along the muddy path at the entrance of the village, heading further away. "Big brother, are you leaving?" Just then, Wang Erniu's childish shout came from behind him. At this moment, Wang Erniu seemed to have finished eating and was squatting at the gate of his own fenced yard. Seeing Zhang Ming about to leave the village, he ran over, looking a bit worried. Zhang Ming nodded. "Yes, I must be going." "But..." Wang Erniu looked up at the sky. The sunset was already slanting, and the light was fading. "Big brother, it's going to be dark soon. It's not safe in the mountains at night. Wild beasts often appear. You should stay in our village for the night and leave tomorrow when it's light. With Dad here, no wild beast dares to come to our village." "Wild beast?" Zhang Ming frowned slightly. "Besides wild beasts, are there any spirit beast?" Wang Erniu scratched his head, looking blank. What is a spirit beast? Hearing there were no spirit beast, Zhang Ming breathed a sigh of relief, but then thought, what if it was just a different name? Therefore, he asked cautiously again, Erniu, is your dad very strong? Is he a spirit grandmaster or a spirit ancestor level expert? Spirit grandmaster, spirit ancestor. Wang Erniu was even more confused, but a proud smile still appeared on his face. I don't know what you're talking about, big brother, but my dad is the best hunter in the area. The best hunter, Zhang Ming paused, then chuckled. So he was just an ordinary person, scaring himself. Zhang Ming was no longer worried. After all, what threat could a beast that even a hunter could hunt pose to him? He was a dignified level 19 spirit master. Don't worry, mere wild beasts are nothing to me. With that, Zhang Ming waved at Wang Erniu and walked away without looking back. Leaving the village, Zhang Ming walked along the winding dirt road. On both sides of the road were dense bushes and trees, casting long shadows in the sunset, appearing somewhat deep and secluded. I wonder if there are any towns ahead. People in this world seem to have settlements too. If I can find a town, maybe I can find out more about treasures. As he walked, Zhang Ming calculated how to maximize his gains in this world so that he could stand out before the Supreme Pontiff and in the Spirit Hall upon his return. But just then, the corner of his eye caught a glimpse of two faint green lanterns lighting up in the depths of the dark forest on the right side of the road. Zhang Ming stopped subconsciously and looked over curiously. With a slight rustling sound, a huge figure slowly paced out from the shadows of the dense forest. It was a giant wolf about 2 meters tall. Its fur was as black as ink, and the so-called lanterns were its eyes, flashing with cruel green light. This is a wild beast. Zhang Ming was startled by the size of the giant wolf. But soon, a look of contempt appeared in his eyes. He felt absolutely no spirit power fluctuations from this black giant wolf. No spirit power. As expected, just a fierce wild beast. Although it's a bit big, I reckon it's only slightly stronger than an ordinary wild wolf. Fine. I'm a bit hungry from the journey. It's like someone brought a pillow just when I felt sleepy. I've decided that you will be my dinner today. Zhang Ming did not hesitate and gave a low shout. Spirit possess. Instantly, a pale cyan light emerged from his body, and a wolf-like phantom could be vaguely seen overlapping with his body. The nails on his hands became sharp, and a hint of lupin ferocity appeared in his eyes. At his feet, a yellow century-old spirit ring lit up. First spirit ability, Gale Blade. The Gale Wolf phantom behind Zhang Ming let out a low roar. He swiped his hands in front of his chest, and a pale green, crescent-shaped light blade about a foot long instantly condensed. Whoosh! A sound of breaking wind rang out, and the Gale Blade slashed towards the black wolf's neck with extreme speed. In Zhang Ming's view, this strike was enough to behead this ordinary black wolf. However, what happened next caused the smile on Zhang Ming's face to freeze instantly, and his pupils to contract sharply. Seeing the incoming Gale Blade, the black wolf not only did not dodge, but opened its bloody mouth. Without deviation, it bit onto the energy-formed Gale Blade. Crack! A crisp sound, as if biting through ice. Zhang Ming's confident Gale Blade was actually bitten to pieces by the black giant wolf's fangs, turning into specks of pale green light and dissipating in the air. What? Zhang Ming couldn't believe his eyes. His spirit ability was actually bitten to pieces by a wild beast. How is this possible? A chill shot from the soles of his feet to the top of his head, and Zhang Ming finally realized that things were probably not as simple as he had thought. At this moment, the black wolf seemed to be enraged by Zhang Ming's attack. It stopped lingering, and under the rising moonlight, it let out a low, evil, chi-filled howl. Then, pushing off the ground with its 4 claws, its entire body turned into a black lightning bolt as fast as a ghost. Carrying a bloody stench, it lunged fiercely at Zhang Ming. Gale Blade, Gale Blade. Terrified to the point of soul flying away and spirit scattering, Zhang Ming retreated in a panic, frantically driving his spirit power, and fired 2 consecutive pale green light blades, trying to block the black wolf's lunge. However, this time, the black wolf didn't even bother to dodge. Clang, clang. 2 crisp sounds of metal clashing rang out, accompanied by splashing sparks. The gale blade, fired with all of Zhang Ming's might, slashed onto the black wolf, but it was as if it hadn't slashed flesh and blood, but hard refined iron. This is impossible. Meanwhile, in the direction of the small mountain village, Wang Erniu's dad, a sturdy, dark-skinned middle-aged man. Facing his son's plea, he helplessly grabbed his hunting bow and walked out of the courtyard. Outsider, you really didn't listen to advice. I hope I'm not too late. Chapter 11. One arrow killed him. What happened to the ordinary person that was promised? Run. Must run immediately. At this moment in the woods, Zhang Ming was completely panicked. His face was pale, and cold sweat instantly soaked his back. He didn't understand. He was already a level 19 spirit master. Even a century-old spirit beast wouldn't dare claim it could take his spirit ability head-on without sustaining injuries. And yet, Wang Erniu called this a beast. Then, what did that make the spirit beasts of the Douluo Continent? However, just as Zhang Ming turned around, before he could even take a step, a foul wind struck from behind. No. Zhang Ming only had time to let out a desperate roar. The next moment, excruciating pain struck. Zhang Ming felt an irresistible, enormous force slam into his body. He was violently knocked away, crashing heavily onto the grass by the roadside. His back was caved in, and he was coughing up large mouthfuls of blood. It was clear he wouldn't survive. If only I had listened to Erniu. If only. Douluo Continent, Supreme Pontiff Palace. Hiss, how is this possible? Looking at the dying Zhang Ming, Chrysanthemum Douluo's eyes were filled with astonishment. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share to AI Otaku Studio. In the Douluo Continent, the power system was clearly defined. Spirit power was supreme. Any creature without spirit power, no matter how fierce its temperament, was essentially just a beast. It might pose a fatal threat to ordinary people, but even a spirit master who had just completed their awakening had no need to fear it. But now, this giant black wolf clearly had no spirit power fluctuations. Yet Zhang Ming, a level 19 spirit master, was not a match for this giant wolf even after using his spirit ability. Pure physical body strength, can it actually be this tyrannical? Chrysanthemum Douluo doubted reality. And Bibai Dong, sitting on the Supreme Pontiff throne, gripped her scepter tightly with her fair, slender fingers, a trace of anger flashing in her eyes. Zhang Ming was a member of the Spirit Hall, even if he was just an insignificant small character. But after seeing that Zhang Ming had collected so many water orchids, Bibai Dong had been looking forward to him bringing them all back. At that time, with so many water orchids, the strength of the middle and lower ranks of their spirit hall would definitely have surged. But now, all of that had come to nothing. But Bibai Dong was ultimately Bibai Dong. As long as she wasn't triggered by infatuation, she was the most powerful and ambitious supreme pontiff in the history of the spirit hall. The anger lasted only a brief moment before being replaced by contemplation. Could it be that the power of that world is not spirit power? In many people's eyes, there was only one type of power, spirit power, but Bibai Dong was different. She had received the legacy of the Rakshasa god and knew that besides spirit power, there was also the existence of divine force. And since there was both divine force and spirit power, who could say? There wasn't a third type of power. If the Shrouding the Heavens world possesses a power other than spirit power. For a moment, Bibai Dong felt suspicious and uncertain, becoming increasingly curious about the Shrouding the Heavens world. If it were possible, she couldn't wait to see the Shrouding the Heavens world for herself. Shrek Academy. Yu Xiaogang watched the sky screen broadcast of Zhang Ming. Seeing Zhang Ming actually beaten to the point of dying by a giant black wolf with one swipe, he couldn't help but shake his head. It seems this Zhang Ming's luck isn't very good either. Although he didn't get ambushed by local natives with spirit abilities the moment he landed like Long Yashin. But just after leaving the village, he encountered something that should be very powerful in that world. However, before he could finish his sentence, whoosh! A sharp sound of breaking air came through the broadcast screen, clear and piercing. In the broadcast screen, the giant black wolf that had just crushed Zhang Ming and killed him in seconds, with its fierce reputation, didn't even have time to react. Its massive head was easily struck by a seemingly ordinary wooden-shafted, iron-tipped arrow. The arrow contained terrifying power, directly carrying the giant wolf's massive body backward as it flew. With a thud, it was nailed firmly to the trunk of an ancient tree behind it that required several people to encircle. The giant wolf's foreclaws twitched powerlessly twice, and then it made no more sound. Instant kill. The terrifying giant wolf that had just killed Zhang Ming in seconds was now casually killed in seconds by a single arrow. What happened? Yu Xiaogang's eyes were filled with curiosity. The next second, a middle-aged man wearing coarse linen clothes, with dark skin and a simple face, walked out from the forest path. Following behind him was the child named Wang Erniu. At this moment, Wang Erniu saw Zhang Ming lying in a pool of blood, his back caved in, breathing his last. His little face instantly turned pale, and he exclaimed as he rushed over, "Big brother, Dad, big brother he." The middle-aged hunter slowly stepped forward, took one simple look, and helplessly shook his head. "His internal organs are completely shattered. There's no saving him. We were a step too late." "Dad." Seeing the title Wang Erniu used to address the middle-aged man, for a moment, the entire Shrek Academy fell into a dead silence. Whether it was Yu Xiaogang, or Flender Zhao Wuji, or even Tang San Zio Wu, Dai Mubai, and others gathered around him, everyone was dumbfounded. As if petrified, they froze in place. How could this be possible? Didn't Wang Erniu say his father was just a hunter? He wasn't even a spirit grandmaster, just an ordinary person. And yet, a normal hunter used an ordinary arrow to kill a fierce wolf in one shot. A wolf that could easily slaughter a level 19 spirit master and had astonishingly high defensive power. Yu Xiaogang's brain simply crashed, going blank. He opened his mouth, staring uncomprehendingly at Zhang Ming's broadcast, which was gradually fading into darkness. After a long while, I'll be damned. Ma Hongzhen was the first to let out a strange cry, the fat on his chubby face shaking. What is this situation? Are the hunters of that world all this ferocious? That giant wolf beat Zhang Ming until he had no power to fight back, but this hunter took it out in one arrow. Oscar also gasped, rubbing his eyes in disbelief. Tang Sen was even more shocked. He discovered that the arrow Wang Erniu's father had just shot seemed simple and unadorned, but the control of the angle, force, and timing was perfect to the extreme. It was not even a bit weaker than the hidden weapons he launched, using his hidden weapon techniques. Could Wang Erniu's father be an expert who likes to pretend to be a pig to eat the tiger? At this moment, it wasn't just the Shrek group. All the powers capable of watching this sky screen broadcast, 7 Treasure Glaze Tile School, Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Clan, Tang Sect, Body Sect, Holy Spirit Cult. Everyone looked at each other after seeing this scene. The giant black wolf that could kill Zhang Ming in seconds. A giant black wolf that even an ordinary spirit ancestor probably couldn't beat, actually. Was killed in one arrow by a normal hunter from the Shrouding the Heavens world. Are the ordinary people of the Shrouding the Heavens world this strong? And just as the various powers across the Douluo Continent were suspicious and uncertain because of this arrow, On the sky screen, the second perspective representing Zhang Ming completely plunged into darkness, and the broadcast ended. Only the third perspective of Zhu Zhuqing continued to broadcast. And at this moment, Zhu Zhuqing had already followed Jiang Wanwen to the outside of the city. "Sister Wanwen, are we just going to walk to White Emperor City like this? Aren't there any horses?" Chapter 12. The shock brought by the moon-escaping immortal palace. Horses. Jiang Wanwen was stunned for a moment, then she covered her mouth and chuckled. "Pht. Little girl, you are truly amusing, Tilda." She extended her fair finger and gently tapped Zhu Zhuqing's forehead, her eyes filled with a touch of playfulness and doting affection. Upon hearing this, a trace of confusion appeared on Zhu Zhuqing's cold, pretty face. "Then, if we aren't riding horses, are we walking there?" In her past understanding, long-distance travel was nothing more than using carriages or boats. Even for spirit masters, long journeys mostly relied on carriages. There were no rivers nearby, and she truly couldn't imagine. What other method could be used for long-distance travel besides carriages? Oh, Jiang Wanwen was amused once again. She reached out and affectionately rubbed Zhu Zhuqing's smooth, long hair, feeling as if she were facing a little kitten that was full of curiosity about the vast world, but still ignorant and naive. "Little girl, remember. From now on, you are a member of my heavenly court. Your horizons must be broadened. You cannot ask such laughable questions again. After all, if it gets out, others might think our heavenly court is so poor that we don't even have an immortal boat for transportation." As she spoke, Jiang Wanwen's bright eyes darted around, looking at the surroundings. They were currently in an open, flat area on the outskirts of the city, with distant green mountains like dark eyebrows and lush grass nearby. This location is large enough. It won't harm any mortals." Jiang Wanwen nodded in satisfaction. Then her expression turned serious as she said to Zhu Zhuqing. "Zhuqing, watch carefully. This is the proper way for a cultivator like us to travel." Before she finished speaking, Jiang Wanwen had already raised her hands. Her 10 fingers moved like lotus flowers, forming a complex and profound Dharma seal. As she moved, an indescribable spiritual charm permeated from her body. A faint silver light shrouded her, her clothes fluttered without wind, and her temperament became ethereal and transcendent. "Rise." Upon hearing Jiang Wanwen's clear shout, the Dharma seal set in place. A cultivator's proper way to travel. Zhu Zhuqing curiously held her breath and focused, wanting to see what exactly Jiang Wanwen meant. At first, she didn't feel any obvious changes in the surrounding environment, and just as she was feeling puzzled. Whoosh! Above the horizon, a strange sound suddenly came. The sound was faint at first, like a buzzing, but in an instant it turned into a low roar as if some behemoth was tearing through the clouds and breaking through the air. Zhu Zhuqing instinctively looked up, gazing into the distance in the direction the sound came from. The next second, her pupils suddenly contracted, and her cold, pretty face was filled with shock. Only to see that above the firmament, rendered by the sunset glow, the clouds were pushed aside to both sides, and a massive boat was slowly flying over. Its entire body presented a texture as warm as jade, yet it shimmered with a cold, metallic luster. The hull was incomparably huge. Looking at it roughly, it was actually 33 stories high. Every level had carved beams and painted pillars, flying eaves and arched brackets, with pavilions and towers arranged in an orderly manner. Within it, there seemed to be spiritual springs, waterfalls, and immortal herbs adorning it. Clouds and mist swirled around it, and immortal light was thick and dense. This was no mere boat. It was clearly a mobile immortal palace suspended above the 9 heavens. This. Zhu Zhuqing's cherry lips parted slightly, her throat tightened, and for a moment she couldn't utter a complete sentence. On the Douluo Continent, she had seen the magnificent carriages of the Spirit Hall, the luxurious carriages of the 7-treasure glazed tile school, and had even heard of some high-level spirit tools capable of short-distance flight. But when had she ever seen such a soul-stirring sight? This had completely exceeded the scope of her understanding. "How is it, little girl? Stunned, aren't you?" Jiang Wanwen seemed to have anticipated Zhu Zhuking's reaction. She withdrew her Dharma technique, the silver light on her body faded, and she blinked triumphantly. She then pointed to the magnificent immortal palace floating above their heads, casting a large shadow, and introduced, "This is my means of transportation, named Moonescaping Immortal Palace." Immortal Palace? Zhu Zhuking murmured this unfamiliar term. Jiang Wanwen chuckled. Her jade hand formed a seal again, and a gentle beam of light descended from the bottom of the Moonescaping Immortal Palace, enveloping her and Zhu Zhuking. Zhu Zhuking felt her body lighten, and the scenery before her eyes changed rapidly. The next moment, she was standing firmly on the ground, on a wide platform at the very bottom of the Immortal Palace. Beneath her feet was a deck as warm as jade, surrounded by swirling clouds and mist. Looking down, she could overlook the mountains, rivers, and cities below, which had become like a sand table model. A sense of unreality, as if in a dream, lingered in Zhu Zhuking's heart. Douluo Continent, Supreme Pontiff Palace. A flying palace. Chrysanthemum Douluo and Ghost Douluo looked at the moon-escaping immortal palace, their eyes filled with horror. Even Bibai Dong, sitting on the Supreme Pontiff's throne, had an unprecedented solemnity in her phoenix eyes. Her fair fingers tightly gripped the Supreme Pontiff's scepter, her knuckles even turning slightly white from the force. The spirit hall had a long heritage and naturally possessed some spirit tools passed down from ancient times, including records of spirit tools capable of carrying people in flight. But those were all small and delicate objects, and they consumed a huge amount of energy. They were only suitable for short-distance travel or surprise attacks. When had she ever seen such a massive, such luxurious spirit tool that seemed to have moved an entire city into the sky? Could the power system of that world really be completely different from spirit power? Bibai Dong's heart was filled with turbulent waves. She had received the Rakshasa god's legacy, knew of the existence of the god realm, and understood that divine force was energy far superior to spirit power. But the feeling this moon-escaping immortal palace gave her was neither a pure creation of spirit power nor the divine force she perceived, but a type of power she did not understand. Perhaps it is truly time to reevaluate this shrouding the heavens world. Bibai Dong took a deep breath, suppressing the shock in her heart. Zhang Ming's death and the loss of the water orchid seemed insignificant compared to this moon-escaping immortal palace before her. And Shrek Academy. At this moment, the square was deathly silent. One could hear a pin drop. After a long while, "Oh, my dear mother." Ma Hongjun let out a strange cry, breaking the silence. He rubbed his eyes vigorously, his fat face filled with horror. "This thing is a boat. This damn thing has moved a whole mountain into the sky, right?" Oscar also gasped. Good heavens, using this thing for travel. This heavenly court, what kind of power is it? It sounds even more domineering than our two great empires and the spirit hall combined. Yu Zhaogang stood frozen in place, the muscles on his face twitching slightly. Previously, he had been talking eloquently, analyzing Zhang Ming's encounter and defining the shrouding the heavens world as a somewhat special small plane. However, at this moment, looking at the 33-story immortal palace in the sky screen that was crushing the sea of clouds and looking magnificent, he felt as if his cheeks had been fiercely slapped by an invisible hand, stinging with pain. Teacher, is this what you called a small plane?" Tang San's eyes were filled with disbelief. He instinctively looked at Yu Zhaogang, his eyes full of confusion and doubt. As a Tang sect disciple, he was proficient in hidden weapons and mechanism arts. and he could appreciate the terrifying technological power represented by the moon-escaping immortal palace more than others. It was by no means a simple mechanical creation. Its massive volume, stable levitation, and exquisite structure all far exceeded the Tang sect's mechanism arts and even the limits of his imagination. What exactly is going on with this Shrouding the Heavens world? Chapter 13, White Jade Capital in the Sky, 12 Towers and 5 Cities. A new announcement from the sky screen. Shrek Academy, Sea God Pavilion. Elder Xu did not even realize when the chicken leg in his hand had fallen to the ground. His eyes were wide as copper bells, staring fixedly at the light screen in the sky. How is this possible? Elder Xuan's voice was filled with shock. Such a massive flying spirit tool. No, this is definitely not a spirit tool. Even the giant airships of the Sun Moon Empire, when compared to it, are just like children's toy boats. Yan Shayaj, Zion Liner, and other veteran elders of the Sea God Pavilion also looked at each other in dismay, their faces filled with disbelief. In the era they lived in, spirit tool technology was already flourishing, and flying spirit tools were not rare. But a creation of such massive scale, such exquisite design, resembling both a mobile fortress and an imperial palace, completely overturned their understanding. Huo Yuhao, who was in the Stardew Great Forest, and the Skydream Iceworm, who had just become Huo Yuhao's intelligent spirit ring, were equally stunned. Even the younger generation across the world, such as Wang Donger, Ma Xiaotao, and Zhu Zai, were looking at the sky screen, mesmerized. For a moment, their hearts were filled with curiosity and shock regarding the unknown Shrouding the Heavens world. I really want to go and see the Shrouding the Heavens world. Shrouding the Heavens world, above the moon-escaping immortal palace. Jiang Wanwen watched Zhu Zhuqing still in that state of shock, almost speechless, and couldn't help but find the little girl even more adorable, chuckling again. All right, little girl, are you stunned by just this? Then, if you were to see the extreme imperial weapon, White Jade Capital, personally crafted by Lord Heavenly Emperor, which gathers thousands of luck and supreme Dao laws into one. Wouldn't you just faint away? Extreme imperial weapon, White Jade Capital. Zhu Zhuqing repeated this domineering and mysterious name, her heart filled with curiosity. With your luck and bone structure, as long as you obediently accept Sister's guidance and become a qualified maid. In the future, you will have the qualifications to go to White Jade Capital to serve Lord Heavenly Emperor. As she spoke, Jiang Wanwen slightly raised her head to look at the sky, her eyes filled with longing. White Jade Capital in the sky, 12 towers and 5 cities. The immortal touches my crown, tying my hair to receive eternal life. White Jade Capital, White Jade Capital. Zhu Zhuqing looked at Sister Wanwen, whose eyes were full of longing. She could not imagine just how spectacular Lord Heavenly Emperor's White Jade Capital must be. White Jade Capital in the sky, 12 towers and 5 cities. The immortal touches my crown, tying my hair to receive eternal life. Could there really be eternal life? At this moment, seeing the girl beside her still looking somewhat dazed and shocked, Jiang Wanwen couldn't help but smile again. All right, little girl, stop letting your imagination run wild. Jiang Wanwen gently patted Zhu Zhuqing's shoulder, her voice soft. You have experienced quite a lot today. Go back and rest well first. You need to wake up early tomorrow morning. I need to teach you some basic rules of the heavenly court first. When Jiang Wanwen said this, her tone turned slightly serious. Furthermore, although you have now gained an initial understanding of the mystical Moon Goddess Sutra and have laid a foundation, but you completely lack any means of offense or defense. Considering that we get along well, Sister will make an exception this once. Tomorrow, I will teach you 1 or 2 practical spells for self-defense. Spells? Zhu Zhuqing came back to her senses. What Sister Wanwen mentioned, is it a method similar to spirit ability? Zhu Zhuqing, subconsciously thought of the spirit ability that spirit masters on the Douluo Continent relied on. I wonder which is better, the spells of this world or our spirit ability. Filled with anticipation, Zhu Zhuqing bowed. Thank you, Sister Wanwen. Jiang Wanwen calmly accepted the bow and smiled. Let's go, I will take you to your room. Soon, Jiang Wanwen brought Zhu Zhuqing to an elegant guest room on the first floor of the Immortal Palace. Pushing open the door, the interior furnishings were simple yet exquisite. The tables, chairs, and bed were all made of fragrant spiritual wood. By the window, there was a potted spiritual plant for calming the mind, and the concentration of spiritual Kai in the air was clearly higher than outside. Rest here tonight. If you need anything, just call me. Jiang Wanwen instructed, and then gracefully departed. Zhu Zhuqing closed the door, lay down on the soft and comfortable antique-style bed, and silently gazed at the ceiling carved with patterns of bright moons and auspicious clouds. She still felt that everything today was full of unreality. What will the spells of this world actually be like? She let her thoughts wander, feeling both nervous and full of anticipation for the arrival of tomorrow. Unknowingly, time quietly slipped away, and it had reached midnight. 00:00. As the time on the Douluo Continent stepped into the beginning of a new day. The massive sky screen hanging high above the Douluo Continent suddenly trembled slightly without warning, and countless mysterious and complex golden runes flowed along its edges. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share to AI Otaku Studio. Immediately, a majestic and grand voice, seemingly originating from the world itself, boomed in the ears of all living beings on the Douluo Continent. Given that more than 2/3 of the selected participants this time have been eliminated, a temporary replenishment mechanism is now activated. In 1 minute, 2 additional reserve candidates will be randomly selected and brought to the Shrouding the Heavens world. All living beings of the Douluo Continent, please prepare. This sudden announcement was like pouring a ladle of cold water into a boiling wok, instantly igniting an unprecedented frenzy across the entire Douluo Continent. Heaven Dew Empire, Crown Prince's residence. Kayan Rengsu, disguised as Zhu King, suddenly raised her head from the desk, a sharp glint of golden light flashing across her beautiful eyes. If it were before, she still held an attitude of disdain and condescension toward this Shrouding the Heavens world, and even felt that if she were selected, it might disrupt her plan to usurp the Heaven Dew Empire while lurking. But, after witnessing the moon-escaping Immortal Palace with her own eyes, her mindset had completely changed. Shrouding the Heavens world, that kind of power. Not to mention anything else, just that moon-escaping Immortal Palace. If Spirit Hall could obtain one, no, even if they could just research the superficial technology of it, the landscape of the entire Douluo Continent would be completely overturned. What Heaven Dew Empire? What Star Luo Empire? In front of an Immortal Palace fortress capable of soaring through the 9 heavens, their so-called territorial defense lines would be virtually non-existent. Able to advance to attack and retreat to defend. At that time, the great cause of Spirit Hall unifying the continent would surely be completed with the force of a thunderbolt. Sky Screen, choose me. Shrek Academy. Yu Xiaoging, Tang San, Dai Mubai, Ma Hongjun, and others were also incredibly excited as they listened to the prompt from the Sky Screen. Especially Yu Xiaoging. New spots, too. Yu Xiaoging's voice was hoarse. A chance, this is my chance. He had been stuck at level 29 for too long, so long that he was almost in despair. But Zhang Ming's unstoppable breakthrough had given him a glimmer of hope. In such a short time, his spirit power had risen by 4 levels. As long as he could go to the Shrouding the Heavens world, breaking through the level 30 bottleneck might not be impossible. Once my spirit power can break through, relying on my invincible theoretical knowledge, becoming a titled Douluo in the future will no longer be a distant dream. When I become a titled Douluo, Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Clan. You all just wait and see. For a moment, Yu Xiaogang secretly hardened his heart. He must make those who expelled him from the family regret it. 30 years east of the river, 30 years west of the river. Do not bully the poor in their middle age. Deep in the Stardew Great Forest, Huo Yuhao and the Skydream Iceworm stopped communicating. Inside the Sea God Pavilion, Elder Xuan, Yan Xiaoj, and other veteran elders held their breath and focused. The younger generation of prodigies like Wang Donger, Ma Xiaoto, and Zhu Zai, or the powerhouses of various sects and empires. At this moment, without exception, they were all waiting. Waiting to see who those two spots would fall to. Chapter 14. New Candidates, the Heaven's Burial Heaven Island. On the Douluo Continent, everyone was waiting in anticipation. At this moment, the illusory figure on the sky screen finally stopped flashing, and that magnificent, cold voice, like a divine oracle, resounded through heaven and earth once more. Ding, the first chosen one, Star Luo Empire's Zhu family, Zhu Jian, level 38 Spirit Elder. Star Luo Empire, Zhu family residence. A young girl who looked 70 to 80% similar to Zhu Zhuking, but with a bit more maturity and coldness between her brows, suddenly raised her head to look at the sky screen, her face filled with surprise. She was indeed Zhu Zhuking's elder sister, Zhu Jian. It's actually me, Zhu Jian thought, looking at her father Zhu Hengfeng and her fiancé Dai Weisi, who were drinking and talking into the night beside her. And the two of them were also filled with astonishment. Zhu Hengfeng was the first to snap out of it. He looked at his eldest daughter, his eyes full of seriousness. He said in a deep voice, "Jian, it is good that it is you. Then, as your father, I will entrust you with a task." Zhu Jian immediately bowed slightly. "Father, please give your orders." Zhu Hengfeng glanced at Dai Weisi, who had a calm bearing and a smile on his lips, and then said to Zhu Jian, "After you go to the Shrouding the Heavens world, if possible. Go and bring back that wretched girl who made our Zhu family lose all face." Speaking of this, Zhu Hengfeng specially urged, "Remember, you must bring her back alive and safe." "I plan to take her and personally plead guilty to your majesty. I fear a missing arm or leg would offend your majesty's eyes." "Father, I understand." Zhu Jian nodded. Zhu Hengfeng breathed a slight sigh of relief, then silently glanced at Dai Weisi, urging Zhu Jian once more. This time, his tone became even more solemn, even carrying a hint of warning. "And also, even when you reach the Shrouding the Heavens world, you must always be clear about who you are and what your status is. Do not learn from Zhuking. She has utterly disgraced our Zhu family." Hearing this, Zhu Jian felt a slight worry for her younger sister. But on the surface, she sneered, her tone filled with disdain. "Father, rest assured. How could I be like that shameless slut Zhu Zhuking? To actually prepare to be a maidservant to a native of another world, it's simply laughable." Dai Weisi then looked at Zhu Hengfeng and smiled with confidence. "Father-in-law, rest assured I believe in Jian." Speaking of which, Zhuking's choice is somewhat understandable. You don't have to blame her too much. Dai Weisi shifted his tone, his voice carrying undisguised contempt. After all, Zhuking's fiancé is a trash like Dai Mubai, who is cowardly, incompetent, bent on escaping, and hangs around brothels. It's not surprising that she would seek another way out. Zhu Hengfeng nodded, a smile appearing on his face. "Your Highness is right." Then he looked at Zhu Jian again. "Jian, among my daughters, you are the one who puts my mind most at ease, and I trust you as well. Your daughter will definitely not fail the high expectations of father and your Highness." However, though she said so, Zhu Jian's heart was filled with curiosity. What exactly did Zhuking see through that jade, slip back then, that made her choose to be a maidservant to a native of that world? Although Zhu Jian did not spend much time being close to her younger sister, after all, she had to show a hostile posture within the family. She actually knew very well the pride and stubbornness in her younger sister's heart. Right at this moment, the sky screen shook again. Ding, the second chosen one, Sun Moon Federation's Donghai City resident, Zhu Han, level 0. Sun Moon Federation, Donghai City. On the bustling streets, people were discussing animatedly because of the unusual movement of the sky screen. In the next second, a golden beam of light connecting heaven and earth quietly descended, enveloping a black-haired youth who was standing by the street, looking curiously at the sky screen's live broadcast. The youth's figure flickered, and along with that beam of light, he vanished without a trace. Not far away, Tang Wulin, who had just finished his forging practice and was about to return to the academy, looked at that beam of light, his eyes widening. So close. Damn it, why isn't it me? Tang Wulin clenched his fists, his face written with envy. Being teleported away right in front of my eyes. This is just too enviable. No, I have to hurry and find Gu Yu and Zai Zai to complain. Shrouding the Heavens world. Eastern Wasteland, Beimu Town. Along with a wave of golden spatial fluctuations sweeping past, Zhu Jian's figure appeared in the shadow of a small grove 100 meters outside Beimu Town. Zhu Jian quickly looked around, feeling the energy of heaven and earth that was completely different from the Douluo Continent. Every breath she took made her feel refreshed and relaxed. This is the Shrouding the Heavens world. Zhu Jian took a deep breath, suppressing the curiosity in her heart, and did not immediately try to cultivate. After all, Zhang Ming's experience was still vivid in her mind. The outside of the city is very dangerous. Thinking of this, she looked at the towering ancient city wall not far away. Through the perspective of the sky screen earlier, she had gained a preliminary understanding of the Shrouding the Heavens world. Without too much curiosity, she walked straight and quickly toward the city gate. Beimu Town. Soon, she arrived beneath the city gate. Looking up at the 3 simple and vigorous characters, she frowned slightly. It's not Qingfeng Town. Then it seems if I want to find my younger sister, I'll probably have to find the people of the Heavenly Court first to contact Jiang Wanwen. After all, Zhuqing had only just joined the Heavenly Court. She was bound to be unknown, and no one would know her. But that Jiang Wanwen, who had taken Zhuqing to White Emperor City, was already at the deacon level, so her status in the Heavenly Court did not seem to be low. I wonder if this town has people from the Heavenly Court, and if they know Jiang Wanwen. Zhu Jian thought, stepping through the city gate. However, just as she reached the city gate, and before she could enter, a female voice with a hint of playful laughter rang out beside her. Yo, what a pretty little girl. You look very unfamiliar. Who are you looking for in such a hurry? Zhu Jian's heart tightened, and she instantly became alert. She hadn't even noticed when this person had approached her. She whipped her head around, only to see a woman dressed in a light purple dress, with a gorgeous and charming appearance, leaning against the city gate, looking at her with a beaming smile. Who are you? Zhu Jian subconsciously took half a step back, the spirit power in her body quietly circulating. Only. Was it just an illusion, but Zhu Jian found that the woman in front of her actually looked somewhat familiar. Seeing Zhu Jian's nervous little expression, the purple-dressed woman smiled and extended a slender, jade-like finger, gently tapping Zhu Jian's smooth forehead. The movement didn't seem fast at all, but Zhu Jian was shocked to find she couldn't react at all. What are you nervous about? The woman's voice was alluring to the bone. Weren't you just muttering to yourself about looking for my useless younger sister, Jiang Wanwen? At the same time, another flash of golden light passed. The Heavens Burial Heaven Island. Third-person perspective, Sun Moon Federation's Donghai City resident, Zhu Han, level 0. Chapter 15. The 9 Dragons Pulling the Coffin Formation, Heavenly Emperor Lin Hao. Douluo Continent. The Heavens Burial Heaven Island. Inside the Spirit Hall, in the bedchamber of the Supreme Pontiff Palace. Clad in a purple gauze nightgown, Bibai Dong sat lazily by the window, staring at the scene presented in the sky screen broadcast, a trace of solemnity on her exquisitely beautiful face. That sky-reaching stone monument, similar to the one seen in the ancient Forbidden Land, likewise stood tall and majestic. But what caught the eye even more was the vast mountain range behind the stone monument. The outline of the mountain range resembled a giant coffin, exuding an ancient and desolate aura. Surrounding the mountain range, 9 winding, dragon-like branches extended from the main ridge. Its majestic aura was so overwhelming, it felt as if it could suppress the entire starry sky beneath it. These mountain ranges. Bibai Dong's dark eyebrows knitted slightly. As the successor to the Rakshasa god, her perception far surpassed that of ordinary people. She faintly sensed that these 9 mountain ranges were not naturally formed, and their distribution subtly aligned with some profound, mystical truth. The dragon heads all faced the void, while the dragon tails were tightly connected to the coffin-like main ridge in the center, forming the heart-palpitating, 9 dragons pulling the coffin formation. Amidst the swirling clouds and mist, the entire mountain exuded an indescribable majesty and pressure. The last one that made me feel such a strong sense of pressure just through an image was the ancient Forbidden Land. Bibai Dong murmured softly to herself, her fingertips gently tapping against the window lattice. The Heaven's Burial Heaven Island. What a truly domineering name. Does it intend to bury even the heavens? The extreme north. A world of 10,000-year permafrost and eternal ice. An ice jade emperor scorpion, Bingdi, whose body was as translucent as jade and exuded an extreme chill, raised her pincers and gently touched the even more ethereal and powerful figure beside her. Sister, why do I feel an instinctive dread when I look at Burial Heaven Island? Bingdi's voice was filled with deep curiosity. And the person she was asking was the true ruler of the extreme north, the Snow Empress, who was ranked 3rd among the 10 great vicious beasts. The Snow Empress was a natural being condensed from the purest ice attribute heaven and earth elemental energy in the core circle of the extreme north. Her temperament was ethereal and peerless, and her beauty was world-tilting. Hearing this, her cool gaze swept across the sky screen, a trace of hard-to-detect solemnity in her eyes. It's not just you. On this Burial Heaven Island, there is absolutely a powerful spirit beast. The Snow Empress's voice was like ice and snow colliding, crisp and cold. But soon, she paused and turned to look at Bingdi, a flash of worry crossing her icy blue eyes. Binger, you still have the leisure to worry about this. Your next heavenly tribulation is already imminent. Heavenly tribulation. Hearing these words, the curiosity in Bingdi's eyes was instantly replaced by deep anxiety. Throughout her long life of 400,000 years, she had already survived several heavenly tribulations, each time hovering on the edge of life and death. The power of the next heavenly tribulation would only be even more terrifying. She sighed, her jade-like body seeming to dim a bit. Sigh, if only there were some way to safely cross or avoid this heavenly tribulation. Thinking this, her gaze turned back to the sky screen. Could there be a glimmer of hope there? Donghai Academy, corridor. Gu Yue looked quickly. At this moment, Tang Wulin had already rushed back from outside, his face a mix of excitement and regret. Pointing at the sky screen broadcast, he said to the cool and aloof Gu Yue beside him, "It's that Zuhan." At that time, right before my eyes swish, and he was carried away by a golden light. It was so close. If that pillar of light had been just a little bit off, maybe I would have been the one chosen. What a pity. Hearing this, Gu Yue did not look at the excited Tang Wulin with her icy blue eyes, but instead stared fixedly at the Burial Heaven Island on the sky screen. Her brow furrowed slightly, her beautiful face filled with solemnity. After a long while, she slowly shook her head, her cool voice interrupting Tang Wulin's reverie. If you had been the one chosen, you would probably be dead too. Dead? Tang Wulin was stunned, looking at Gu Yuina in total bewilderment. Gu Yue, what do you mean by that? Literally, just watch. Gu Yuina's tone was cool, carrying a hint of wariness that even she herself hadn't noticed. As the primary personality of the Silver Dragon King, her perception of danger was an instinct that transcended humanity. Although she was completely unable to see through the true nature of this burial heaven island, the shocking 9 dragons pulling the coffin formation, and the ancient, desolate aura of silence exuded by the island sent waves of warning deep into her soul. She trusted her instincts. That place was definitely not a safe haven. So mysterious. Tang Wulin mumbled softly, but he still cast his gaze back to the sky screen, a hint of curiosity blooming in his heart because of Gu Yue's words. In the Shrouding the Heavens world, on Burial Heaven Island. At this moment, Zhu Han finally woke up completely from the dizziness of the cross-realm teleportation. He blinked hard, looking around at everything with curiosity. Beneath his feet was hard black rock covered in strange patterns, and the air was filled with an aura he had never felt before. Inhaling it into his lungs actually made him, an ordinary person who was unable to awaken spirit power on the Douluo Continent, feel entirely comfortable, as if every single cell was being strengthened. The Shrouding the Heavens world. I have actually come to the Shrouding the Heavens world. A surge of immense ecstasy instantly rushed to his head. He waved his fists excitedly and couldn't help but roar. Ha ha ha, I'm no longer that useless trash who could only wield a hoe spirit. I want to cultivate here. I want to become a powerhouse. I want to make a name for myself and make everyone who looked down on me regret it. When Zhu Han was on the Douluo Continent, the spirit he awakened was just an extremely ordinary hoe. Furthermore, his innate spirit power was 0, destining him to have no connection with spirit masters for his entire life. The passionate dreams of his youth had long been shattered by reality, but at this moment, this incredible opportunity caused his long-extinguished ambition to burn fiercely once more. However, just as Zhu Han was bursting with excitement, a cool breeze blew past without warning, causing him to shudder instinctively. The dense, almost solid mist around him was dispersed slightly by the wind, and his field of vision suddenly opened up. Zhu Han instinctively turned his head, wanting to see the scene behind him. But with just this one glance, the ecstasy on his face instantly froze, transforming into absolute terror. Behind him was not the expected mountain range, but an endless, dark void. As far as his eyes could see, there were only distant, twinkling stars and the outline of the vast earth below, which looked as remote as a miniature model. Only then did he discover that the entire burial heaven island was actually floating tens of thousands of feet high in the sky. Meanwhile, on the Douluo Continent, everyone watching this scene through the sky screen broadcast also erupted into an uproar and shock far more intense than before. Hiss, the entire burial heaven island is actually flying in the sky. Holy crap, I thought Jiang Wanwen's moon-escaping immortal palace flying ship was already miraculous enough for being able to fly, but this is a whole continent flying in the sky. How is this possible? What kind of grand power is required to hold up such a massive island? The ancient forbidden land devours time and years, while Burial Heaven Island hangs high above the 9 heavens. Just how many more unbelievable places are there in this Shrouding the Heavens world? Various sounds of shock, discussion, and curiosity resounded in every corner of the Douluo Continent. Whether they were spirit masters or commoners, everyone was completely shocked by the spectacle of Burial Heaven Island. However, inside the bedchamber of the spirit hall, Bibai Dong's pupils suddenly contracted. Her gaze bypassed Zhu Han and stared fixedly at the sky-reaching stone monument at the entrance of the island. Previously, because of the angle and the obstruction of the clouds and mist, she could only see the 5 large characters "The Heavens Burial Heaven Island" on the front of the stone monument. Now, as the cool breeze blew past, the clouds and mist dispersed slightly. On the sides, and even the back of the stone monument, some blurry words seemed to be engraved. Emperor Hayashin, Lin Hao. Chapter 16. The Heavenly Emperor's True Name, the Terrifying Burial Heaven Island. Emperor Hayashin, Lin Hao. Bibai Dong's red lips parted slightly as she stared intently at the area behind that towering stone monument, which had the Heaven's Burial Heaven Island inscribed on its front. Those ancient, seal script characters, which she clearly shouldn't have been able to understand, yet somehow inexplicably knew the meaning of, repeated silently in her mind. Her heart was filled with astonishment and curiosity. The existence who established the heavenly court and rules over this mysterious world is his title Emperor Hayashin, and his given name, Lin Hao. In the Douluo Continent, the names of titled Douluo are indeed honorable. Even for those as powerful as gods, the Asura god, the sea god, the angel god. They are mostly symbols of their god position. Yet, looking at the three ancient seal script characters for Emperor Hayashin on the sky screen, combined with the name Lin Hao, it gave Bibai Dong a sense of even greater majesty and a more heart-palpitating dread. It seemed this was not just a title or a god position, but an emperor who suppressed all enemies in the world with absolute power. Bibai Dong thought, her gaze becoming even more focused. She attempted to clearly see what kind of information was inscribed on the sides and back of that stone monument. After all, she also wanted to go to the Shrouding the Heavens world. To see with her own eyes what this so-called Shrouding the Heavens world was truly like. If she could learn as much as possible about the Shrouding the Heavens world, especially matters related to its ruler, Heavenly Emperor Lin Hao, it would definitely be of great benefit and no harm. Furthermore, it wasn't just Bibai Dong. Inside the Shrek Academy dormitory, Enning Rongrong covered her small mouth, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Zio Wu, did you see that, Emperor Hayashin? Lin Hao, so that's the name of the master of the heavenly court. Just hearing the name makes it feel so domineering. Enning Rongrong said, shaking Zio Wu's arm beside her. Zio Wu, you said that Jiang Wanwen was already so powerful. Then how powerful must the Lin Hao, whom she praises so highly, be? Zio Wu shook her head, her eyes also filled with curiosity. I really envy Xiuqing. If only I could go to the Shrouding the Heavens world. Enning Rongrong muttered softly. Meanwhile, next door, Tang Sen was also watching the sky screen broadcast. On such a stone monument, standing on an island above the 9 heavens, what exactly would that Emperor Hayashin write? Shrouding the Heavens world, Burial Heaven Island. Just as everyone in the Douluo Continent was curiously discussing the name of the Heavenly Emperor. At this moment, Zuhan finally recovered from his shock. Who? He calmed his mind slightly, looked around, and finally looked at the stone monument again. Zuhan had watched the sky screen broadcast before and knew that Long Yashin, who had walked toward that stone monument, had been erased by the passage of time. However, behind him, beneath the swirling clouds and mist, was a bottomless abyss of 10,000 zhang. There was simply no way to retreat. Behind me is a 10,000 zhang abyss. There is absolutely no way to go back, and in front. In the end, Zhu Han gritted his teeth, a hint of determination flashing across his face, and chose to walk toward the stone monument. I don't believe there isn't a single path to survival here. I am Zhu Han, the lucky one chosen by the sky screen. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share to AI Otaku Studio. While whispering to encourage himself, Zuhan lifted his foot extremely slowly and cautiously, slowly stepping toward the direction of the stone monument. On the Douluo Continent, everyone watching the sky screen broadcast was staring intently at every move Zuhan made. At the same time, they were watching Zuhan's surroundings to ensure that if anyone else was there, they would be the first to notice. They were desperate to know if this new, lucky one would follow in Long Yashin's footsteps. Also, how exactly did Long Yashin die? More importantly, what kind of information was inscribed on the sides and back of that mysterious stone monument? 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Unexpectedly, Zhu Han was not eroded by the power of time like Long Yashin, nor did he encounter any obvious attacks. It was just that with every step he took, the interval between them was inexplicably lengthened. But that didn't seem like much, right? Inside the Shrek Academy dormitory, Tang Sen saw that Zhu Han had actually walked several steps without any issues. It seems not every place with a stone monument is as sinister as the ancient Forbidden Land. This burial heaven island seems quite However, before Tang Sen could finish his sentence, he suddenly noticed something was wrong. He saw on the sky screen that as Zhu Han walked, his steps became slower and slower until at the 10th step. He had merely lifted his foot and then almost stopped moving entirely, maintaining that posture. Could it be that Zhu Han discovered some danger and didn't dare to continue? Tang Sen guessed, his eyes filled with confusion. Beside him, Yu Xiaogang shook his head, not daring to analyze rashly anymore. After all, he felt his face had been slapped too hard, and almost everything he analyzed today was wrong. Am I not the #1 theoretical grandmaster of the Douluo Continent? How could I be wrong? Yu Xiaogang was unwilling to accept it. Soon, Tang Sen was suddenly shocked. No. It's not that Zhu Han stopped moving. The surrounding leaves, the clouds in the sky. Hearing Tang San's words, Yu Xiaogang also instantly realized, yes. The surrounding leaves and the clouds in the sky were all normal. Only the speed of Zhu Han's stride seemed to have been slowed down by 1,000 or 10,000 times. Hiss. Yu Xiaogang gasped, his voice dry and trembling with disbelief. This is this time frozen. Or rather, the flow of time in the area he is in has become extremely slow. Tang San nodded, his eyes filled with shock. Burial Heaven Island seems to be the exact opposite of the ancient Forbidden Land. The ancient Forbidden Land accelerates the passage of time, with one step spanning decades, but this Burial Heaven Island actually requires decades to take a single step. Donghai Academy, in the corridor. Tang Wulin and Gu Yu looked at each other, both seeing the horror in each other's eyes. Gu Yuina frowned, took a deep breath. What a terrifying Burial Heaven Island. Accelerating time to strip away life, slowing time to create a near-eternal imprisonment. The ancient Forbidden Land and Burial Heaven Island, these two places are more sinister than the other. The Shrouding the Heavens world truly harbors great terror. But just at this moment, a thought suddenly flashed through the mind of Gu Yuina on the Douluo Continent. You said the back of the Burial Heaven Island monument has the 5 golden ancient seal script characters, Heavenly Emperor Lin Hao. Does that mean he has been here? In such a forbidden zone, not only could he come, but he could also leave behind such an immortal monument. And the stone monument, in front of the ancient Forbidden Land, is exactly the same as this one. Then, behind that stone monument in the ancient Forbidden Land, is there, also handwriting left by this Heavenly Emperor Lin Hao. This conjecture, not just for Gu Yuina, but also Tang San Bibai Dong, Kaiyan Rengsu, Dai Tian. At this moment, everyone couldn't help but gasp. After all, if this were really the case, then that Heavenly Emperor Lin Hao, since he could leave his marks in both the ancient Forbidden Land, which strips away time, and the Burial Heaven Island, which is a time prison, doesn't this mean he is above time itself? Chapter 17. Is this the Heavenly Emperor, the absolute powerhouse who suppressed an era, transcending time itself? Hiss. The moment this possibility crossed their minds, every powerhouse on the Douluo Continent with even the slightest understanding of power felt a chill run from their spines straight to their scalps, their hair standing on end. Sounds of shock erupted one after another in every corner of the Douluo Continent. Inside the Shrek Academy dormitory, Tang Sen sat up abruptly from his bed, fine beads of cold sweat oozing from his forehead. Thinking back now, the fact that he had actually considered Burial Heaven Island safer than the ancient Forbidden Land made him feel that his own logic was simply absurd. Both of these places could be called death zones. After all, whether it was the time-slashing prodigy of the ancient Forbidden Land or the time-trapping bewitchment of the Heaven's Burial Heaven Island, both possessed the great terror of the power of time. But yet, in such a terrifying place, that heavenly emperor had allegedly visited, and had even left behind a towering stone tablet at each location. It was not hard to discern from Jiang Wanwen's words. That heavenly emperor was still holding down the white jade capital and had not been trapped here. Is this the heavenly emperor of the Shrouding the Heavens world, the absolute powerhouse who suppressed an era? Tang Sen swallowed with difficulty, his eyes filled with shock. Beside him, Yu Xiaogeng was completely speechless, his lips trembling, unable to utter any more theoretical analyses. The spirit theories he had studied all his life seemed so pale and ridiculous in the face of this naked, time-manipulating power displayed by the Shrouding the Heavens world. For the first time, he realized deeply. Outside this world, there might exist beings far beyond the limits of his imagination. And just at this moment, the scene on the sky screen changed drastically again. Crack, Siararak. A series of clear, harsh sounds, like glazed jade being crushed to pieces, rang out without warning. Everyone's gaze was instantly drawn back to the sky screen. In the live broadcast, Zhu Han, who was on the Heaven's Burial Heaven Island, was seen. Under countless shocked gazes, the surface of his body, like porcelain, began to sprout countless fine black cracks, covering his entire body in an instant. Boom! A dull, heart-wrenching cracking sound, not loud but heavy, rang out. Zhu Han's entire body, right before everyone's eyes, completely disintegrated. There was no flying flesh and blood, no explosion of energy. He was truly like a piece of pottery that had lost all its spirit. He shattered into countless irregular fragments, their edges flickering with an eerie black light, and scattered all over the ground. When those fragments touched the ground of Burial Heaven Island, which was filled with the mist of time, they merged like water droplets into the sea, disappearing silently without leaving a trace. It was as if this person had never existed at all. Donghai Academy, in the hallway. Shattered. Seeing this scene, Tang Wulin widened his eyes in horror. Gu Yuina's cold and beautiful face was also filled with unprecedented shock, and deep within her purple eyes, a look of disbelief flickered. It really is the power of time. As the Silver Dragon King, she had inherited part of the dragon god's memories and knowledge. She knew the weight of the word time better than anyone else. Therefore, she also understood the current value of the title Heavenly Emperor better than anyone. Acceleration, stasis, this is the power that touches the origin law. If one could master even one of these time powers, it would be enough to defy the heavens and change one's fate, yet that Emperor Hayashin, he seems to have ignored both of these extreme time effects simultaneously. If we could get the help of that heavenly emperor, our spirit beasts. Thinking of this, Gu Yuina's breathing suddenly quickened, and a flash of excitement and fanaticism crossed her eyes. Opposite her, although Tang Wulin's understanding of the power of time was far less profound than Gu Yuina's, the miserable end of Zhu Han shattering like porcelain was right before his eyes. He swallowed with difficulty and horror. He thought about how he had previously envied Zhu Han for being transported to the Shrouding, the heavens world right in front of him. And when Gu Yu told him that he would die if he went, he had been curious. Now it seems that if it had really been me instead of Zhu Han, I probably would have died on this the Heaven's Burial Heaven Island too. However, soon Tang Wulin became curious again. Gu Yue, you said time is slowed down, how can it cause death? Shouldn't it stay eternal? Hearing this, Gu Yuina snapped out of her thoughts about the possibility of reviving the spirit beast clan and shook her head slightly. Su Han was just an ordinary person. He couldn't withstand the backlash of the power of time, so he died. Extreme North. Ice Emperor was also watching the scene of Zu Han shattering, her eyes full of lingering fear. Sister, this burial heaven island is too terrifying. Snow Empress's ice-blue eyes, however, shone with brilliance. She took a deep breath of the freezing air, trying to suppress the excitement in her heart, but her voice still carried a slight tremor. No, Binger, you're wrong. This burial heaven island is a dead zone for those who cannot withstand its power, but for other beings, it is an unimaginable blessed land. A blessed land, Ice Emperor was puzzled. Think carefully. Snow Empress explained urgently. The flow of time inside Burial Heaven Island is extremely slow. 1,000 years might pass outside, but only one day might pass on the island. What does this mean? It means that if a powerhouse whose lifespan is coming to an end, but who cannot make a breakthrough enters it, they can use the slow time flow on the island to gain almost endless lifespan to think and find the opportunity for a breakthrough. Do you remember what I told you before? That there is definitely a terrifying spirit, beast on this burial heaven island. Ice Emperor nodded, her eyes full of surprise. Sister, could it be that there is a powerhouse of our spirit beast clan on this burial heaven island who is running out of time? Snow Empress shook her head. Right now, I am not sure if it is a spirit beast, but it is definitely not a human. Saying this, Snow Empress looked at Ice Emperor seriously. Binger, if you can go to the Shrouding the Heavens world, then find a way to see if you can be accepted by that powerhouse on Burial Heaven Island. If you can, then for almost 10,000 or even 100,000 years, you will never have to worry about the heavenly tribulation again. Not worry about the heavenly tribulation. Ice Emperor was pleasantly surprised. Yes. For a moment, both Ice Emperor and Snow Empress yearned to go to the Shrouding the Heavens world. Spirit Hall, Supreme Pontiff Palace Bedchamber. Bibai Dong's graceful and luxurious body leaned slightly against the back of her chair, her red lips parted slightly, whispering to herself. I actually thought someone was launching a surprise attack before. Ridiculous, truly ridiculous. At this moment, Bibai Dong completely overturned her previous judgment. The deaths of Long Yashin and Zhu Han were not some surprise attack or trap at all, but the indiscriminate, terrifying law inherent to that piece of heaven and earth. Using supreme power to shroud such a vast area under the law of time, what kind of heaven-defying means is this? Goosebumps rose on Bibai Dong's fair arms, and a chill welled up from the bottom of her heart. Does the god realm of the Douluo Continent have any gods capable of doing this? The Asura god, the sea god, or the angel god? Bibai Dong didn't know. After all, she had not reached that realm. And at this moment, on the sky screen, with Zhu Han's death, the third-person perspective fell into darkness again. Second perspective, Star Luo Empire Zhu Clan, Zhu Jian, Level 38 Spirit Elder. Chapter 18, Zhu Jian's Pride Dai Weisi's Smugness. Shrouding the Heavens World, Beimu Town. After listening to Zhu Jian's general account, which omitted details about the sky screen and Douluo Continent, Jiang Xiaoxiao looked at her thoughtfully. In other words, your useless sister Zhu Zhuqing, because she possesses natural purple luck, was accidentally selected by my useless sister, Jiang Wanwen, and taken to White Emperor City. Jiang Xiaoxiao repeated, and you? In order to find your useless sister Zhu Zhuqing, you want to find people from our heavenly court to ask them whether they know my useless sister. That is the case, Senior. Zhu Jian nodded, feeling slightly relieved in her heart. I didn't expect my luck to be so good, to actually run into the older sister of the heavenly court deacon who took Zhuqing away right at the city gate. Now it seems I should be able to find Zhuqing. While Zhu Jian was thinking, Jiang Xiaoxiao rubbed her chin, didn't answer directly, and instead re-examined Zhu Jian with a curious gaze. Natural purple luck. A mortal with such 1 in a million. No, 1 in a billion. Heaven-chosen luck aptitude is indeed qualified to be taken away by my sister. However, my sister was born with such luck, but what about this older sister? Thinking this, Jiang Ziexao sized up Zhu Jian again. She has good looks, and unlike those so-called fairies who use cultivation techniques to alter their appearance. Perhaps she really does have luck on her. Let's test it. Jiang Ziexao collected her thoughts and finally spoke. Little girl, I can understand your feelings about wanting to find your sister. But our heavenly court has strict rules. It is not a place you can just come to or inquire about as you please. Unless. Having said this, Jiang Ziexao paused deliberately. Unless, Zhu Jian asked hurriedly. Jiang Ziexao enjoyed the trace of worry appearing on Zhu Jian's face, smiled, and said slowly. Unless you can pass the selection and become a maid serving His Majesty, the Heavenly Emperor. Then, you will be one of our own in the heavenly court, and naturally, you will have the qualifications and channels to visit your sister. Impossible. Hearing this, Zhu Jian shook her head and refused directly, her tone firm. Senior, if that is the case, then I can only give up. Jiang Ziexao chuckled upon hearing this, refusing so simply and without hesitation. Zhu Jian nodded, looking proud. That's right. Senior, even if I die, I will absolutely never become anyone's maid, not even for that heavenly emperor. Really? Jiang Ziexao had a mischievous look. Little girl, don't make a judgment so early. As she spoke, without Jiang Ziexao making any movement, a jade slip with a warm texture, flawless white, and seemingly flowing with moonlight and starlight appeared out of thin air. After you look at this jade slip, it won't be too late to make a decision. Saying this, Jiang Ziexao tossed the jade slip in her hand to Zhu Jian. Douluo Continent, inside the Zhu family residence. Dai Weisi held a wine glass, and seeing Zhu Jian refuse to become that heavenly emperor's maid without hesitation, the corners of his mouth couldn't help but curl into a satisfied and confident arc. Seeing Jiang Ziexao still unwilling to give up, actually wanting to rely on a piece of jade to change his fiancée's mind, he couldn't help but sneer, his eyes full of mockery. This heavenly court deacon seems to be wasting her efforts. Zhu Jian's backbone, how can Zhu Yuqing compare? Heth. Shrek Academy. Inside the dormitory, Dai Mubai sat up nervously, looking at the sky screen. My respected sister-in-law, what choice will you make? Thinking that Zhu Yuqing became a maid for that heavenly emperor in the heavenly court, he felt he had lost all face. Dai Weisi, this older brother, who knows how wantonly he would mock him for being cuckolded. For a moment, Dai Mubai's eyes were filled with anticipation for Zhu Jian's fall. Meanwhile, in the Shrouding the Heavens world, Beimu town. A jade slip. Zhu Jian looked down, staring at the cool-to-the-touch jade slip in her palm, which seemed to have moonlight flowing within. She was curious and subconsciously thought. Back then, her sister also seemed to have firmly refused to be a maid for that heavenly emperor. But after she looked at this jade slip, she changed. Previously, Zhu Jian had always been incredibly curious about what was recorded in this jade slip. How could it make her sister, who was so proud, willing to go and be a maid for that heavenly emperor after seeing it? Now, do I also have a chance to see it? After a while, Zhu Jian decided, watch it. But, no matter what is recorded in this jade slip, she would only take one look to satisfy her curiosity, and then leave immediately to continue searching for her sister in her own way. Having made up her mind, Zhu Jian stopped hesitating. Following the method Jiang Wanwen had taught Zhu Yuqing to inspect a jade slip, she pressed it to her glabella. Watching Zhu Jian. A mortal actually knows how to use a jade slip. It seems what she said earlier shouldn't be a lie. My stupid sister's luck seems really good, actually finding a woman among mortals who is favored by the heavenly Tao. Damn it. Bringing back a woman with purple luck, how much heavenly court contribution would that be? Perhaps it could really let her trade for a 5-turn golden core, and her cultivation could surpass me. Thinking that Jiang Wanwen might rely on this achievement to not only overwhelm her in resources, but even surpass her in cultivation and step on her. Jiang Xiaoxiao was full of annoyance, then looked at the eyes-closed Zhu Jian. If the younger sister can be favored by the heavenly Tao, I hope the older sister can be the same. Jiang Xiaoxiao felt a bit helpless. This was truly not a failure of strategy. There was no way around it. If the world's luck totaled 10 units, after their heavenly emperor appeared, he monopolized 8 units, and it could even be said to be a complete monopoly. It would be good enough if others didn't owe the heavenly Tao luck, let alone be favored by it. Only those direct noble daughters of the major holy lands and great emperor families, relying on their profound heritage and special bloodlines, might occasionally be favored by the heavenly Tao. But those noble daughters are not selected by their deacons, but chosen personally by the empress. Plus, the selection happens every 10 years. Almost any seedling with slight potential had long been screened and taken away over and over again. Therefore, these deacons usually return empty-handed. Being able to find one with green luck is considered very lucky. For example, Jiang Xiaoxiao, this time she came to Beimu town, let alone purple luck, she didn't even find a woman with green luck. She had no gains. Not to mention that above green, there is the blue grade, and only then is there purple. Just as Jiang Xiaoxiao was pondering, at this moment, Zhu Jian only felt an extremely cold sensation at her glabella, which turned into a torrent and suddenly surged into her sea of consciousness. In an instant, the world changed. At the beginning of the Tao, chaos first divided. Living beings were ignorant, unaware of immortality. Mystical Moon, Goddess Sutra, which draws on the essence of moonlight to build the foundation of the Tao. Chapter 19. The beauty of a youth, clear as wind and moon, innocent in thought. The elegance of a young man, an unparalleled immortal. Shrouding the heavens world, Beimu town. Time passed second by second. Jiang Xiaoxiao waited quietly until an hour later. Who? Zhu Jian finally slowly lowered the jade slip she had been pressing against her forehead. Her red lips were slightly parted, her eyes still vacant. She muttered unconsciously, her voice as light as a dream, yet it carried a shock that completely overturned everything she had previously believed. Is this, His Majesty the Heavenly Emperor? The beauty of a youth, clear as wind and moon, innocent in thought. The elegance of a young man, an unparalleled immortal. Within this information, aside from the mystical Moon Goddess Sutra, a cultivation technique, Zhu Jian seemed to have seen a blurry figure. At first, it seemed to be just a refined youth standing on a mountain peak. His aura was pure and flawless, his eyes as clear as deep pools reflecting the moonlight, untainted by a speck of dust. The next moment, the image shifted, and the youth had become a young man. Yet he remained peerlessly graceful, standing independently above the clouds. His handsomeness and transcendence seemed to gather all the spiritual beauty of heaven and earth. It was as if an immortal had descended into the mortal world, making the sun, moon, and stars pale in comparison. That supreme demeanor, which transcended all things and looked down upon the cycles of reincarnation, was deeply branded into the depths of Zhu Jian's soul. So that's how it is, so that's how it is. Is this everything my younger sister saw? Is this the truth of this world? Now, having thoroughly understood what the shrouding the heavens world was, and what cultivation was, Zhu Jian finally understood why her younger sister, Zhu Zhuqing, who was as proud as herself, would choose to become a maid for His Majesty the Heavenly Emperor without the slightest hesitation or struggle after seeing this jade slip. It turned out that the titled Douluo realm, which was regarded as the highest pursuit on the Douluo Continent, was so small and ridiculous in front of this shrouding the heavens world, and the system revealed by this jade slip. Lord Heavenly Emperor. With a flick of a finger, he can shroud the heavens. With a single thought, he can sever the galaxy. Just what kind of peerless elegance must that be? Zhu Jian muttered in her heart, her eyes filled with longing. Just as Zhu Jian was still feeling shocked, and her worldview was being completely reshaped, Jiang Ziyaxiao's voice, carrying a hint of playfulness and understanding, sounded, pulling her back to reality. How is it? Do you still want to join the heavenly court now? If you don't want to join, you can leave now. Although she said this, a faint light flashed on Jiang Ziyaxiao's fingertips. A transparent crystal ball, which seemed to have mist flowing inside and could test one's luck, appeared in her palm. She was not worried at all that Zhu Jian would leave. Zhu Jian's gaze had already regained its clarity. She looked at Jiang Ziyaxiao. Having seen the truth of the shrouding the heavens world with her own eyes, for Zhu Jian, joining the heavenly court was no longer a multiple-choice question that required hesitation, but a mandatory choice. Moreover, the women of their Zhu family, whether it was her or Zhu Zhuqing, had grown up under cruel family education. Although she loved her little sister Zhuqing very much in her heart, because of the family rules, she had to show hostility toward this sister, and even potentially kill her in the future. It was never just you, Zhuqing, who wanted to change the status quo of the family and truly control my own destiny, my silly sister. Zhu Jian sighed in her heart, and at the same time, understood her silly sister's good intentions. Her decision to join the heavenly court was not only for herself, but perhaps also to find a different path for the Zhu family and for her, the older sister. It was just that she, at the time, was trapped by the pattern of the Douluo Continent and could not understand it. Thinking of this, Zhu Jian no longer had any hesitation. She nodded firmly, her voice resolute. "Senior, I want to join the heavenly court." As she spoke, she took the initiative to step forward and gently placed her slender, white palm on the transparent crystal ball. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share to AI Otaku Studio. The crystal ball trembled slightly, and the mist inside began to flow and gather rapidly, eventually blooming with a deep blue light. Seeing that blue radiance, a trace of imperceptible disappointment flashed in Jiang Ziyaxiao's eyes. "It's not purple." But soon, she adjusted her mindset, and a satisfied expression appeared on her face again. In this era where luck is monopolized by Lord Heavenly Emperor, blue luck was already rare, and perhaps not even 1 in a million people could possess it. Bringing it back to the heavenly court was also a significant contribution. However, Jiang Ziyaxiao put away the crystal ball and teasingly brought up the past again. Little girl who was just vowing that, even if I die, I would absolutely not become a maid for His Majesty the Heavenly Emperor. This change is a bit too fast, isn't it? Upon hearing this, a look of frankness and a bit of self-deprecation appeared on Zhu Jian's beautiful face. "Senior, please don't make fun of me anymore. Before, I was like a frog at the bottom of a well, unaware of the bright moon in the sky. Now that I have seen the truth, if I have the opportunity to serve His Majesty the Heavenly Emperor, how could I not be willing?" Seeing that Zhu Jian's attitude had changed so completely, Jiang Ziyaxiao nodded with satisfaction. Being able to understand this truth shows that you, little girl, are not too stupid. Since that's the case, come with me. Having said that, Jiang Ziyaxiao said no more. Her skirt swayed, and she walked toward the gate of Beimu town. Douluo Continent. Star Luo Empire, Zhu family residence. Bang! With a loud bang, an expensive glass wine cup was smashed to the ground, and wine splattered everywhere. Zhu Hengfeng, the head of the Zhu family, had his hair and beard disheveled, his chest heaving violently, and his face filled with irrepressible shock, anger, and disbelief. How could this be possible? Jian, how could she also choose to join the heavenly court? She is the child I am most steady about and have the highest expectations for. Zhu Hengfeng was extremely angry. 2 daughters in a row had chosen the same rebellious path, which made him feel that he had lost all face, and he was deeply worried about the future of the family. After all, how could the anger of the Star Luo imperial family be quelled? On the side, Dai Weissy's face was even more livid, so gloomy that water was almost dripping from it. He clenched his fists, his knuckles turning white from the force. Just a moment ago, he was still in the posture of a winner, looking down on Dai Mubai, mocking Zhu Zhuqing, and mocking that heavenly court deacon for wasting their efforts. But in the blink of an eye, his fiancée, the fiancée whose hand he hadn't even held, actually announced in front of countless people on the entire Douluo Continent that she wanted to go and be a maid for that heavenly emperor. Thinking that his fiancée might have to cater to another man in the future, Dai Weissy felt a surge of evil fire rushing to the top of his head. It was as if an invisible, green hat had already been placed on his head. It seemed as if someone was asking in his ear, "What is hip-hop? Who do you like the most?" However, Dai Weissy was, after all, the current crown prince of the Star Luo Empire. After taking a few deep breaths, he suppressed his anger and squeezed out an extremely forced smile at Zhu Hengfeng. "Father-in-law, I believe Xian. She should just be using it as an expedient measure to investigate Zhuqing's whereabouts. Your son-in-law suddenly feels a bit unwell, so I will take my leave." After speaking, without waiting for Zhu Hengfeng to respond, Dai Weissy hurriedly left the Zhu family mansion. He was afraid that if he stayed for another moment, he would not be able to control his composure. Watching Dai Weissy's dejected back as he left, Zhu Hengfeng hurriedly shouted at his back, "Your Highness, rest assured. When these 2 unfilial daughters, Zhuqing and Xian, return in 3 months, I will definitely take action myself and break their legs. Let them never be able to go to that so-called Shrouding the Heavens world again." Meanwhile, at Shrek Academy. Chapter 20. Dai Mubai's Schadenfreude and the curiosity of the entire Douluo Continent. Douluo Continent, Shrek Academy. Inside the dormitory, Dai Mubai saw on the Sky Screen live stream that Zhu Xian had actually chosen to join the heavenly court and become a handmaiden to that heavenly emperor. He suddenly felt that the fact his fiancée, Zhu Zhuqing, had become a handmaiden to that heavenly emperor was not so unbearable after all. After all, there wasn't much affection between him and Zhu Zhuqing. Otherwise, he wouldn't have chosen to run away to the Heavendew Empire. The reason he felt humiliated was simply because Zhu Zhuqing was his fiancée in name. No man could accept his fiancée going to serve someone else as a handmaiden. But his elder brother and Zhu Xian, that was a different story. After all, his elder brother Dai Weissy and Zhu Xian were childhood sweethearts, and their relationship was definitely much deeper than his and Zhu Zhuqing's. Thinking of the humiliation and rage Dai Weissy might face, for a moment, Dai Mubai felt a sense of schadenfreude. Big brother, oh big brother, sister-in-law has now also chosen to join the heavenly court and become a handmaiden. I believe that heavenly emperor will take good care of my good sister-in-law for you. Ha ha ha. However, schadenfreude was just schadenfreude. Thinking that even if Zhu Xian joined the heavenly court, Zhu Zhuqing might still have to serve that heavenly emperor and bow to his commands. Dai Mubai's mood, which had slightly improved because Zhu Xian also joined the heavenly court, once again became incomparably uncomfortable and stifled. Dai Mubai let out a low growl and punched the wall. Damn it. Zhu Zhuqing, she is my fiancée. Heavenly Emperor Lin Hao, bastard. Compared to Dai Mubai's breakdown again. At this moment, inside Ning Rongrong and Xiao Wu's dormitory, the two were purely curious. Xiao Wu, what do you think Zhuqing and her sister saw in that jade slip? Ning Rongrong, wearing pajamas, sat cross-legged on the bed, resting her chin on her hands, looking at the sky screen with a confused face. They were both such proud people. How could they decide to join the heavenly court so resolutely after seeing the contents of that jade slip, without even a moment of hesitation? Xiao Wu shook her scorpion braid, equally puzzled. Yeah, it's so strange. Although I haven't had much contact with Zhuking, I generally understand her personality, proud, stubborn. Once she makes a decision, almost no one can change it. And yet, after looking at that jade slip, her attitude suddenly changed. And her sister Zhu Jian, who was clearly so resistant to becoming a handmaiden of the heavenly court just a moment ago, has now made the exact same choice as Zhu Zhuking. The key is that jade slip. Enning Rongrong waved her little fist, her eyes full of curiosity. What on earth is in that jade slip? I'm so curious. Xiao Wu nodded as well. And it wasn't just Xiao Wu and Ning Rongrong who were confused and curious. Heaven Du City, Crown Prince's residence. Kaiyan Rengsu stood in front of the window, looking up at the sky screen in the air, thinking silently. If I have the chance to go to the Shrouding the Heavens world, I must see for myself. What kind of secret is hidden in that jade slip that could make the Zhu sisters so determined? As for whether she would choose to join the heavenly court and become a handmaiden to the heavenly emperor after seeing it. What a joke. Kaiyan Rengsu wasn't worried at all. After all, she was the dignified heir to the angel god. How could the Zhu sisters compare to her? Spirit Hall, inside the Supreme Pontiff Palace bedroom. A trace of inquiry also flashed through Bibai Dong's beautiful pink-purple eyes. Must see it. Tang Wudong, Guyuina Ice Emperor Snow Empress, Tang Wulin. Same for them. Douluo Continent, Stardew Great Forest. Watching Jiang Xiaoxiao on the sky screen, leading Zhu Jian toward the outside of the town. Hu Yuhao couldn't help but feel curious, and asked Tianmeng Iceworm in his spiritual sea in a low voice. Brother Tianmeng, do you think this senior Jiang Xiaoxiao will summon another moon-escaping immortal palace? Tianmeng Iceworm subconsciously wanted to say, how could that be possible? Do you think the moon-escaping immortal palace is a Chinese cabbage? You can have one whenever you want. But in the end, thinking of the absurdity of this Shrouding the Heavens world, he said somewhat uncertainly, SH shouldn't be right. Although I have been staying in the Stardew Great Forest, I have also learned about the outside world through the spirits of some spirit masters. A spirit tool airship as incredible as the moon-escaping immortal palace, let alone the Sun-Moon Empire. You wouldn't find one even if you searched the entire Douluo Continent. It's already outrageous enough that the heavenly court has won. Could that kind of terrifying war weapon be mass-produced? Hearing this, Hu Yuhao nodded, feeling that Brother Tianmeng's analysis was very reasonable. After all, a spirit tool like the moon-escaping immortal palace must be extremely rare and precious. However, the next second, Hu Yuhao opened his mouth wide, his eyes filled with disbelief. Tianmeng Iceworm was also dumbfounded. There really is another one. Such a terrifying spirit tool could that heavenly court mass-produce them. Hiss. Thinking of this possibility, Tianmeng Iceworm felt that his whole worm self was not feeling well. Shrouding the Heavens world, outside Beimu town. Jiang Xiaoxiao stood in the open space outside the town, pinching mysterious magic seals in her hands, with the charm of the Tao flowing. In an instant, a low hum came from the distant sky, and a 33-layered silver-white immortal palace, as huge as a moving mountain and identical to the one that had picked up Zhu Zhuking earlier, tore through the clouds. Zhu Jian looked at this scene, even though she had seen the moon-escaping immortal palace on the sky screen live stream before, at this moment. When she looked up at this giant ship with her own eyes, she still couldn't help but be shocked. Jiang Xiaoxiao took in Zhu Jian's shock, the corners of her mouth slightly raised, revealing a faint, accustomed smile. She reached out and pinched Zhu Jian's smooth cheek affectionately, saying, "All right, come back to your senses. Don't look like you've never seen the world. Work hard in the heavenly court in the future. if you can gain the appreciation of the heavenly emperor and be promoted to a heavenly court steward. Maybe you will also have the chance to obtain a moon-escaping immortal palace of your own for transportation. I also have a chance. Zhu Jian turned her head in surprise to look at Jiang Ziexio, her beautiful eyes full of longing. Owning such a luxurious, immortal palace and traversing the firmament, this was a scene she wouldn't have dared to dream of in the past. Naturally, His Majesty is clear about rewards and punishments and is never stingy with meritorious officials. Jiang Ziexio said with certainty, then waved her hand. All right, get on the ship. It will take about a day to reach White Emperor City. As the two boarded the moon-escaping immortal palace, the huge hull started silently, turned into a stream of light, and disappeared into the vast night sky in an instant. Because the night was deep, Jiang Ziexio didn't say much and led Zhu Jian directly to a bedroom to rest. Inside the bedroom, Zhu Jian lay on the soft and comfortable cloud bed, but had no sleepiness. Everything that happened today was like a dream. Forced to leave the Douluo Continent, come to this completely strange, shrouding the heavens world, and her identity changed from the fiancée of a noble prince of the Star Luo Empire to a reserve handmaiden of the heavenly emperor. Zhu Jiuqing, my good sister, you seem to have made your choice a step ahead of me. But, as a younger sister, don't think you can surpass your older sister. No more words for the night. The next day, early morning. First perspective, Shrek Academy student, Zhu Jiuqing, level 28. Chapter 21, Great Void Art, a life in the void realm never inferior to others. Shrouding the heavens world. High above the 9 heavens, clouds surged. The silvery white moon-escaping immortal palace shuttled between the mists, its speed unimaginably fast, yet it was as stable as if it were on the ground. How did you sleep? Zhu Jiuqing had just stepped out of her room when a gentle voice came from her side. She turned her head and saw Jiang Wanwen looking at her with a smile. Zhu Jiuqing gently shook her head, looking at the clouds rapidly receding in the sky. Her cool, delicate face still held a trace of lingering bewilderment. I still feel a bit like I'm dreaming. Jiang Wanwen smiled. You will get used to it gradually. However, since you are awake now, before we arrive at White Emperor City this afternoon, I will briefly explain the rules of our heavenly court to you. Zhu Jiuqing heard this. Her expression turned serious, and she nodded. Jiang Wanwen saw this and spoke. Her tone remained calm, but her expression carried unquestionable majesty. The heavenly court has many rules, but there is only one core rule: absolute loyalty to His Majesty the Heavenly Emperor. His Majesty is the will of the heavenly court and the sole meaning of its existence. As female officials and handmaidens by His Majesty's side, we must unconditionally and unhesitatingly satisfy and execute any of His Majesty's needs or commands. Any needs. Zhu Jiuqing subconsciously repeated, a flash of shyness and nervousness uncontrollably crossing her cool eyes. She was not an ignorant girl, and naturally understood the implications of any needs. Jiang Wanwen saw Zhu Jiuqing's reaction, chuckled, and reached out to affectionately ruffle Zhu Jiuqing's soft black hair. Yes, naturally any needs, including the kind you are thinking of right now. Zhu Jiuqing's cheeks flushed slightly, and she lowered her head. However, Jiang Wanwen changed the subject, her tone carrying a bit of comfort. I know what you are worried about, and it is normal to be unable to accept it for a moment. But rest assured, His Majesty the Heavenly Emperor is not the lecherous person you imagine, nor is he a vulgar person who relies on power to forcefully take what he wants. She looked out the window of the immortal palace at the boundless sky, her tone filled with reverence. His Majesty's heart encompasses the universe, and his ambition lies in the Tao. In all these years, many women have been selected into the heavenly court, but only one imperial princess from the Jai family, a great emperor clan, has been chosen by His Majesty to stay by his side. The other sisters either stayed in the heavenly court to become deaconesses, or, when the 10-year term arrived, they were sent back home. Zhu Zhuking breathed a sigh of relief upon hearing this. Although she was full of curiosity and longing for this heavenly emperor, and had prepared herself for certain things when choosing to join the heavenly court. But she was, after all, a young girl who had not experienced such matters, so she was naturally worried about such things. She was really afraid that as soon as she arrived at the heavenly court, she would be. I understand. Thank you for clarifying, Sister Wanwen. Jiang Wanwen nodded, since you have already understood the core rule of the heavenly court. As for more detailed rituals and division of duties, there will be special instructors to teach you when we reach White Emperor City. While we still have some time, I will teach you a spell of this world, which can be considered letting you have some ability to protect yourself and adapt in advance. A spell. Zhu Zhuking's eyes lit up instantly, full of curiosity and anticipation. Douluo Continent, Shrek Academy. Hearing Jiang Wanwen say that it was highly unlikely Zhu Zhuking would actually be treated that way by that heavenly emperor, Dai Mubai couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it's safe for now. Tang Sen looked at his teacher, Yu Xiaogang, at this moment and asked curiously, "Teacher, that Jiang Wanwen said she wanted to teach Zhuking a spell. What could this spell be?" Yu Xiaogang subconsciously wanted to analyze it confidently upon hearing this. But soon he felt a bit guilty. After all, his face had been slapped too hard yesterday, so he didn't dare to speak recklessly now. He could only uncertainly say, "It should be similar to a spirit ability, right?" After all, besides spirit abilities, what other means of attack could there be? Tang San, Dai Mubai, and Oscar nodded subconsciously. It's possible. After all, spirit abilities are already so powerful. How could there be something called a spell that is more powerful than a spirit ability? Ma Hongjun pursed his lips. So it's just a spirit ability. What kind of spell? Isn't it just a different name? Maybe it's not even as powerful as my Phoenix Fire Wire. Zhuking, the spell I, your sister, am going to teach you is called Great Void Art. Great Void Art. Yes. Jiang Wanwen nodded and explained. This Great Void Art is a secret technique of the Jai family, one of the top forces in the Eastern Wasteland. When this method is cultivated to a profound realm, one can merge with the void realm, vanish without a trace, and traverse space as if walking on flat ground. Whether it is used for sneaking, chasing, or escaping, it can be called an peerless, miraculous method. In a single thought, one can merge into nothingness, making it hard for an opponent's divine sense to locate. When moving, one can cross distances like a ghost, impossible to defend against. She paused and looked at Zhu Zhuking with deep meaning. I see that your aura is light and your steps are agile. I don't know what that little kitten in your body is. Is it a phenomenon of a special bloodline? Little kitten. Zhu Zhuking was shocked. Does Sister Wanwen know I have a spirit? However, seeing that Jiang Wanwen didn't seem to have any intention of digging deeper, she couldn't help but secretly breathe a sigh of relief. Jiang Wanwen continued, I can see that you are following an agile and nimble combat path. Therefore, among the spells I know, the Great Void Art is the most suitable for you. Speaking of this, Jiang Wanwen's expression became slightly serious, and she urged, But you must remember, I can teach you this technique because you are already a member of our heavenly court, and His Majesty has a close relationship with the Jai family, so the Jai family will not say anything about it. But in the future, if you want to teach this technique to others, you must not teach it to anyone outside the heavenly court. Otherwise, the majesty of a great emperor clan like the Jai family, which has inherited its legacy for eternity, is not to be trifled with. Great Emperor Clan. Zhu Zhuking was a bit curious. What is a Great Emperor Clan? Is it a force like the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Clan? Maybe I can ask later. Although she was curious, Zhu Zhuking still nodded seriously. Zhuking understands. I will never pass it on to anyone else. Jiang Wanwen saw this and said no more, throwing a jade slip to Zhu Zhuking. This is the great void art organized by His Majesty the Heavenly Emperor, which is more conducive to our learning. Sister spent a lot of contribution points to exchange for it back then. Whether you can comprehend it depends on your own affinity. Thank you, Sister Wanwen. Zhu Zhuking took the jade slip, her eyes full of anticipation, and skillfully pressed it to her forehead. The moment the jade slip touched her forehead, Zhu Zhuking felt a cool and vast torrent of information surge into her mind. She closed her eyes involuntarily, her long eyelashes trembling slightly, and the expression on her face changed. Sometimes confused, sometimes suddenly enlightened, countless insights about the Tao of space, the cultivation method of the great void art, the circulation route, hand seals, and incantations were branded and engraved in the depths of her soul. Until the end. She seemed to see a blurry, magnificent figure between nothingness and reality, finally standing above the endless void realm, yet also buried in the endless void realm. A life in the void realm, never inferior to others. Listening to his final murmur, she didn't know why, but Zhu Zhuking suddenly wanted to cry. She felt a kind of desolate tragedy. Void Emperor. Chapter 22. Void Emperor, the shock brought by the great void art. Sister Wanwen, why am I feeling so sad? Zhu Zhuking had already opened her eyes, but a mist of water covered her cool, cold eyes, and her voice carried a hint of a sob she herself had not noticed. Jiang Wanwen looked at the girl before her with slightly red-rimmed eyes, reached out to wipe away the tear that was about to fall from the corner of her eye, and explained. Silly girl, this is normal. In order to make it easier for the disciples of the heavenly court to understand and comprehend the great void art, His Majesty the Heavenly Emperor specially left a wisp of the Void Emperor's imprint in the jade slip. Although it is only an insignificant wisp, but an emperor is an emperor after all. For those of us with shallow cultivation, even just touching a wisp of the imprint he left in the world, it is inevitable that we will be influenced by the emotions he felt back then. Is that so? Zhu Zhuking remained dejected, her mind still curious about the life of that towering figure. Born in the void, buried in the void. And that tragic whisper of void for a lifetime, not weaker than any, the sorrow that spanned endless years and traversed time and space, still made her unable to catch her breath. Sister Wanwen, that void emperor, why was he so sorrowful? Jiang Wanwen reached out and gently patted Zhu Zhuking's shoulder. Every emperor who has attained the Tao has suppressed an era and carried the heaviest burden of that era. The Void Emperor is an even more special one among them. As she spoke, she changed the subject, not wanting Zhu Zhuking to continue immersing herself in that sadness. All right, snap out of it. Let me first see how much you have comprehended of the great void art. Upon hearing this, Zhu Zhuking took a deep breath, seemingly finally snapping back to reality. She nodded at Jiang Wanwen, closed her eyes, and the scriptures, Tao rhymes, and incantations that had just been imprinted in her mind flowed by like water. Great void art, merging the body into the void, escaping without a trace. She recited silently in her heart, the power within her body that was originally called spirit power on the Douluo Continent. At this moment, under the quiet operation of the mysterious moon goddess art, it had already begun to undergo some mysterious changes. Although still weak, it already carried a hint of spirituality that was more in tune with this world. Zhu Zhuking formed a profound hand seal with both hands, although the movement was slightly stiff. But the next moment, ripples like water waves appeared in the space around her. Immediately, Zhu Zhuking's figure was seen becoming blurred and transparent in an instant, merging into the surrounding spacetime. Although it was still far from reaching the realm of merging with the void, leaving no trace. But for someone who had just come into contact with this art, it was already a quite rare speed of entry. Swish! Zhu Zhuking's figure, disappeared from where she stood. The next instant, she actually appeared at the other end of the immortal palace corridor 3 zhang away. However, as soon as she stood firm, she felt a wave of intense weakness wash over her like a tide. The spirit power and true essence within her body, which were already scarce, were almost instantly drained, and her face turned as pale as paper. Did I succeed? At this moment, an unbelievable light of surprise burst forth in Zhu Zhuqing's eyes. She had really done it. Traversing space, even if it was only a short 3 zhang in her original world, this was probably a realm that only a space-type titled Douluo could touch. Moreover, Zhu Zhuqing could feel that this great void art was by no means a simple teleportation. That mysterious realization of merging with the void made her perception of the surrounding space much clearer. This doesn't count as a true success. Jiang Wanwen's voice sounded, carrying a bit of a smile and also a bit of seriousness. Do you think you are some kind of gifted genius who learns everything at once? You were able to reach the threshold so quickly entirely because this jade slip of the great void art was personally organized and imprinted by His Majesty. Its Tao rhymes are clear, and its principles point directly to the origin, making it more suitable for beginners to comprehend than the original inherited ancient scriptures of the Jai family. Therefore, you were able to barely enter the threshold so quickly. Guard against arrogance and impetuosity. Douluo Continent, Shrek Academy. Hiss. The entire courtyard was deathly silent. Everyone, whether it was Tang San Dai Mubai, Oscar, or Yu Xiaoging, who had always appeared very steady, all had their eyes wide open at this moment, staring fixedly at the sky screen, their faces filled with shock and disbelief. Spell, not a spirit ability. Tang San's voice was dry. This is definitely not a spirit ability. How could a spirit ability? How could it allow someone to truly merge into space? Ma Hongzhen's face turned even paler, and he opened his mouth, wanting to say something like nothing special. But the words reached his lips, yet he could not say them at all. No matter how arrogant he was, he could see what Zhu Zhuqing's move just now meant. That was definitely not something his Phoenix Fire Wire could compare to, nor was it comparable to any spirit ability he knew of now. Oscar swallowed his saliva and asked Yu Xiaoging in a low voice. Grandmaster, this great void art, is it much stronger than a spirit ability? Yu Xiaoging's expression changed, and he did not speak, because he also had no idea, but he vaguely felt. This was more than just strong. It was simply 2 different levels of things. Spirit abilities are essentially the imitation and release of the abilities of the spirit beast within the spirit ring, limited by the age of the spirit ring and the level of the spirit master, with an upper limit on power, and their forms are basically fixed. But this great void art, it is more like a kind of comprehension and application of the rules of the void. Even though Zhuqing just learned it, this ability is already not weaker than an average spirit Douluo, right? But Jiang Wanwen said, this is still only barely entering the threshold. Barely entering the threshold, and she could already merge into the void, if she cultivated it to a profound realm. And although Yu Xiaoging did not speak, everyone understood what he meant. For a moment, an indescribable emotion surged in everyone's hearts. Envy, jealousy, shock, perhaps all of them. Tang San clenched his fists even tighter. He prided himself on his outstanding talent and possessed the unique skills of the Tang sect. But at this moment, watching the opportunity Zhu Zhuqing obtained in that, shrouding the heavens world, a strong sense of unwillingness and longing surged in his heart. If I could also go to that world. Dai Mubai, who was by his side, had complex feelings. Zhuqing was becoming stronger and stronger, and it seemed that they were becoming more and more impossible. Spirit Hall, deep within the Supreme Pontiff Palace. Bibai Dong slowly stood up from her throne, the scepter in her hand trembling slightly. In her purple gold eyes, an unprecedented shock and Burning heat were surging at this moment. Power of space, true application of the rules of space. As a rank 97 titled Douluo and possessor of twin spirits, she also possessed space-type abilities, which were among her most powerful spirit abilities. Precisely because of this, she knew better than Tang San and the others what that great void art move of Zhu Zhuking's meant just now. That was not a spirit ability with a fixed pattern bestowed by a spirit ring, but a kind of technique that could continuously evolve and derive infinite changes as cultivation improved and comprehension deepened. It was the true control and application of the rules of space. What kind of existence is this shrouding the heavens world? Shrouding the heavens world, inside the moon-escaping immortal palace. The exhausted Zhu Zhuking had already reached a seat with the support of Jiang Wanwen. But in her mind, that tragic figure still lingered, unable to be dispelled. After hesitating for a moment, she finally could not help but look at Jiang Wanwen and asked softly, "Sister Wanwen, you previously said that the Jai family is an emperor family. What kind of power is an emperor family? And that void emperor, what kind of existence was he exactly?" Chapter 23. Arriving at White Emperor City, Lin Hao heads to White Emperor City. Upon hearing this, Jiang Wanwen cast her gaze toward the sea of clouds rapidly sweeping past outside the window, falling silent for a moment. Outside the moon-escaping immortal palace, the mist grew thinner, and on the distant horizon, the silhouette of a magnificent immortal city was gradually becoming clear in the morning light. Phew. Jiang Wanwen withdrew her gaze, looked at Zhu Zhuking and smiled. "Are you curious?" "Yes." A flash of anticipation crossed Zhu Zhuking's eyes, and she nodded vigorously. The so-called Great Emperor clan is naturally the bloodline left behind by the Void Emperor, and it is one of the top powers in the Eastern Wasteland. As for the Void Emperor, his life was too legendary to be told in a short while. As she spoke, Jiang Wanwen looked at the city on the distant horizon. "Once we get settled in today, come find me again, and I will tell you then." "Settled in, what does that mean?" Zhu Zhuking asked, puzzled. Jiang Wanwen smiled and said, "Because White Emperor City has arrived." Jiang Wanwen stroked Zhuking's head and pointed to the magnificent immortal city drawing ever closer outside the window. "Prepare yourself, Zhuking. Welcome to White Emperor City. From this day forth, you are a member of the Heavenly Court." The moon-escaping immortal palace slowly descended, passing through the clouds, and headed toward the silver-white immortal city. Above the endless sky of White Emperor City, there stood towers of jade and palaces of gold, White Jade Capital. Deep within White Jade Capital, in the star-plucking tower, a figure reclined on a cloud couch. He wore casual lunar white robes, his hair loose and simple, with a few strands of white hair falling across his forehead, and in his pair of golden double pupils, it seemed as if the sun and moon were revolving. In his hand, he toyed with an archaic ring. The ring was entirely a dull black gold color, minimalist in design, with only a divine dragon coiled around the ring's body, its head held high, and every scale on the dragon's body meticulously detailed. At the dragon's eyes, there were two extremely brilliant points of golden light. Looking at the black gold dragon-carved, Hayashan world in his hand, Lin Hao shook his head. "Don't forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share to AI Otaku Studio." "What is wrong, Your Majesty?" A soft voice rang out. This was a woman dressed in a light purple wide-sleeved fairy dress, possessing breathtaking beauty, as cold and elegant as a fairy of Guanghen, with eyebrows and eyes 6/10 similar to the future Jai Ziyu, yet possessing a bit more tranquility and noble grace. She was none other than the most talented person in the Jai family for 1,000 years, the Jai family's imperial daughter, and currently one of the Heavenly Court's empresses, imperial daughter Jai Zi. She stopped playing the strings of her zither and looked at Lin Hao curiously. Upon hearing this, Lin Hao did not answer, but instead put the Haoshan world back on his index finger. Only then did he turn to the side, and naturally rested his head on Imperial Daughter Jai-Z's lap. Imperial Daughter Jai-Z pursed her red lips slightly, but did not dodge. She reached out with her slender, jade-like hands, placing her fingertips on Lin Hao's temples to massage them gently. "Luck is still not enough," Lin Hao said in a low voice, his eyes closed. Imperial Daughter Jai-Z looked down at Lin Hao's closed eyelids. "Your Majesty is already so strong. Throughout history, how many can compare to you? Why are you always so urgent?" Strong, Lin Hao asked himself silently in his heart. Perhaps in the eyes of the world, yes. His current cultivation had indeed reached the pinnacle of this world, and no one in the 9 heavens and 10 lands could challenge him. Even against the undying emperor who had been lurking behind the scenes for endless years, Lin Hao had the confidence to fight him by relying on the double pupil precious technique. After all, the double pupil was originally the path of the invincible. But so what? As someone who underwent transmigration, Lin Hao knew very well. Above the great emperor, there was the mortal world immortal. Above the mortal world immortal, there was the immortal king. Above the immortal king, there were even quasi-immortal emperors and immortal emperors. And that eerie plateau, that caused the heavens and myriad worlds to sink, along with the 10 great eerie progenitors lurking within. He, Lin Hao, after experiencing rebirth, was he just waiting for the desolate heavenly emperor Shi Hao, heavenly emperor Yi Fan, or the war reporter Chu Lolita to save him? To be able to become a great emperor, which one of them was not arrogant and invincible, entrusting one's own destiny to the hands of others was not Lin Hao's Dao. He was not willing. Therefore, he still wanted to become stronger, to become even stronger. Moreover, the appearance of the system proved that in the future, he would likely also have times when he was powerless. Thinking of this, Lin Hao shook his head gently again, pushing these thoughts down. He opened his eyes, visions flashing and vanishing within his double pupils, and looking at the breathtaking face close at hand, he changed the subject. Imperial Daughter Jai-Z, how was the harvest this time? Imperial Daughter Jai-Z heard this, her tone carrying a bit of helplessness. Your Majesty, 7 or 8 out of 10 parts of the world's luck have already gathered in the heavenly court, merged into the Haoshan world. All the great emperor clans, holy lands, and ancient legacies. Anyone who carries profound luck has either long since submitted to your Majesty's command, or their destiny has already been deeply tied to the heavenly court's luck. Trying to easily find new, powerful sources of luck like before is now extremely difficult. I see. Lin Hao nodded, his expression calm. No matter, this matter cannot be rushed, and there is plenty of time ahead. Time was on his side. After all, the current Yi Fan had not yet boarded the 9 dragons pulling the coffin to arrive at the Big Dipper. Oh right, Imperial Daughter Jai-Z seemed to have thought of something. Your Majesty, this time, Jiang Wanwen discovered a small surprise among the billions of mortal beings. Oh, a surprise. Lin Hao raised an eyebrow slightly. Imperial Daughter Jai-Z nodded, picked up an immortal fruit, held it gently in her mouth, and lowered her head to feed it to Lin Hao, saying at the same time, Jiang Wanwen found a girl carrying purple luck among the vast sea of mortals. Purple luck favored by the heavenly Dao. A trace of surprise flashed in Lin Hao's eyes. To think such a daughter of luck could appear among mortals, not bad. Where is she now? Imperial Daughter Jai-Z loosened the ribbon at her waist. She has already been taken in by Jiang Wanwen and is currently on the moon-escaping immortal palace heading toward White Emperor City. After she has been taught the proper etiquette by the matron, I will bring her to pay her respects to your Majesty. Lin Hao pecked Imperial Daughter Jai-Z's red lips lightly and nodded. Good, you put in the effort. If she is truly a talent worth molding, the heavenly court will not be stingy with resources. Yes, your Majesty. Imperial Daughter Jai-Z replied softly, her fairy dress slipping down as she collapsed softly into Lin Hao's arms. Who knows how much time had passed? Imperial daughter Jai-Zi lay on the cloud couch, her skin flushed crimson, drenched in fragrant sweat, her hair disheveled. Watching Lin Hao rise, she asked in a hoarse voice, "Your Majesty, where are you going?" "I'm going to stroll around White Emperor City." Lin Hao stretched his body, his lunar white robe fluttering in the wind. He looked toward the white jade immortal city, a trace of a smile flashing in his eyes. "By the way, I'm going to see an old friend, that big black dog." A big black dog, Imperial daughter Jai-Zi immediately understood. Is it? To find Senior Black Emperor. In the entire heavenly court, who else could be addressed as an old friend by this heavenly emperor, who spent the whole year hanging around White Emperor City and had such obvious characteristics? Besides that black emperor whom Lin Hao had brought back, who had a mysterious origin, a thick face and a black heart, and loved to take people as pets. "Yes, that's that lazy big black dog," Lin Hao scolded with a smile. "I haven't seen it for some time. I'll go see where it is swindling people again." As he spoke, Lin Hao took a step, and his figure disappeared from within the star-plucking tower, with only faint spatial ripples slowly calming down in front of Imperial daughter Jai-Zi. Chapter 25, The Shocking Douluo Continent. Did Emperor Heyotian cut the heavenly river with a single sword? White Emperor City has arrived. Hearing Jiang Wanwen's words, Zhu Zhuqing's eyes were instantly filled with anticipation. She was full of curiosity about the location of the heavenly court she was about to see. Zhu Zhuqing quickly stood up, walked to the bow of the moon-escaping immortal palace, placed her hands on the railing, and looked down curiously. The moon-escaping immortal palace was slowly passing through the final layer of the sea of clouds, and the clouds parted on both sides like gauze. The moment her vision cleared, Zhu Zhuqing was stunned. No, not just stunned. She was deeply shocked, right from the depths of her soul. Before her eyes, on that boundless land, stood It was a magnificent city that she had no words to describe. Zhu Zhuqing even felt that rather than calling it a city, it was more like an immortal mountain divine kingdom, standing amidst the clouds and mist. A miracle forged by the creation of heaven and earth, and supreme great power. White Emperor City, the entire city was a warm, silvery white color. It was not ordinary white stone, but a type of jade that seemed to contain moonlight and conceal divine light. The city walls towered into the clouds, visually at least 1,000 zhang high. Carved upon them were countless complex and profound Tao patterns, flowing with a faint golden halo under the sunlight. The city walls extended to both sides, with no end in sight, as if the city itself were a continuous mountain range. In the city, pavilions and palaces were layered, some suspended in midair, held up by clouds and mist, others rooted in the earth, yet towering like peaks. As for the rest, Zhu Zhuqing could not see clearly. Because the entire White Emperor City was covered by a faint, silver light shield. Immortal Kai swirled, rays of auspicious light shone, and the phantoms of auspicious beasts appeared in the clouds, with ethereal immortal sounds and Tao rhythms drifting with the wind. This completely transcended the concept of a city. In Zhu Zhuqing's mind, all the magnificent buildings she knew on the Douluo Continent flashed by: Heaven Dew Imperial City, Spirit City, Star Liu Imperial Palace. But compared to this White Emperor City before her, they were completely incomparable. This is White Emperor City. Zhu Zhuqing gripped the railing tightly, her voice trembling slightly. Jiang Wanwen heard this, smiled, and walked to her side, standing shoulder to shoulder with her. Looking at the familiar scene before them, a trace of pride flashed in her eyes. Yes, White Emperor City, one of the most important strongholds of the heavenly court in the eastern wilderness, and also our home for the foreseeable future. Douluo Continent, Shrek Academy. Hiss. Silence. Dead silence. Until it was broken by a distorted exclamation from Ma Hongzhen. My God, people from the Shrouding the Heavens world actually call this a city. He pointed his chubby finger tremblingly at the sky screen, his eyes wide open, his mouth agape enough to fit an egg. It wasn't just him. Dai Mubai, Oscar, Zio Wu, and even the usually calm Tang San were now in the same state of stupor. They looked up at the unimaginable scene of the immortal city in the sky screen, feeling their worldview being ruthlessly crushed time and time again. How can this possibly exist? Oscar muttered, how much money would this cost? No, this is simply not something humans could build, right? Dai Mubai nodded subconsciously. Tang San's purple demon eye was instinctively pushed to the limit, his eyes filled with incredulous shock, trying to confirm this wasn't his hallucination. Yu Xiaogeng was also completely speechless. Am I crazy, or are the people of the Shrouding the Heavens world crazy? This damn thing is a city. Heaven Do Empire, Heaven Do City. Crown Prince's residence. Kayan Renksu stood before the window, her beautiful golden eyes fixed on the sky screen, her chest heaving slightly. It was not hard to see that she was equally unsettled. As the daughter of the Supreme Pontiff of Spirit Hall, and the young lord who had been lurking in the Heaven Do Empire for many years, she thought she had seen the most extreme power and prosperity in the world. The grandeur of Heaven Do City, the solemnity and sanctity of Spirit City, she had marveled at them all, believing they were the peak of what human power could achieve. But at this moment, looking at that white emperor immortal city amidst the clouds, she realized how narrow her previous understanding had been, how much of a frog in a well she had been. Spirit City, Heaven Do City. Kayan Renksu's mouth curled into a bitter smile, compared to this white emperor city. The gap was not one of size or quantity, but a fundamental difference between the mortal and the immortal. At this moment, a strong desire sprouted in her heart. She craved that kind of power, that kind of world, shrouding the heavens, heavenly court, Emperor Hayashin. Shrouding the heavens world. The moon-escaping immortal palace had begun to decelerate, descending toward a huge platform on the edge of White Emperor City. As the distance closed, the details of the city became clearer. On those jade-like buildings were carved patterns of the sun, moon, and stars, birds and flowers, ancient ancestral sacrifices, and battles between gods and demons. Every stroke seemed to contain stories and power. The streets were wide and clean, paved with a certain cyan jade that naturally formed cloud patterns. In the city, one could see lakes like mirrors, reflecting the palaces in the sky. There were also gardens everywhere, with exotic flowers and grasses emitting a hazy brilliance. As the moon-escaping immortal palace fully landed, only after setting foot on the ground did Zhu Zhuqing truly feel the extraordinary nature of this city. The white jade beneath her feet was warm yet incredibly hard, with the pulsation of spiritual Kai faintly coming from below. With every breath, the rich spiritual Kai in the air automatically poured into her body, causing the power she had consumed from casting the great void art to recover rapidly. If she hadn't already started cultivating immortality, her spirit power would likely have surged by a large margin. At this moment, seeing Zhu Zhuqing still in awe, Jiang Wanwen patted her head. All right, you little girl who hasn't seen the world. If you're this shocked by mere White Emperor City, won't your jaw drop when you see White Jade Capital? White Jade Capital is the true city of immortals. Jiang Wanwen smiled and pulled the still dazed Zhu Zhuqing off the moon-escaping immortal palace. White Jade Capital is the true city of immortals. Zhu Zhuqing murmured subconsciously. She dared not imagine it. If White Emperor City was already this shocking, what would White Jade Capital be like? Soon, the two entered White Emperor City, and Zhu Zhuqing felt as if she had entered another world. The spiritual Kai in the air was so dense it almost turned to mist. The streets were wide and neat, enough to accommodate dozens of carriages side by side. The buildings on both sides were magnificent and varied in style. Some were ancient and grand, others exquisite and elegant, but without exception, they all emitted spiritual light. Pedestrians were as dense as weaving, and almost all of them had extraordinary temperaments. Some wore ancient Taoist robes, some wore magnificent armor, and some were not even human in form, but they seemed to get along quite harmoniously. The entire city was permeated with an aura that was ancient, solemn, and full of vitality and order. However, none of that mattered. Zhu Zhuking's gaze was immediately captured by the shocking scene above White Emperor City. What was that? She saw that above White Emperor City, more than 1,000 zhang high, a silver waterfall appeared out of thin air. There was no source, no mountain range. That vast river of silver water seemed to pour down from the void above the 9 heavens. Hundreds of zhang wide, like a galloping, roaring silver dragon, it plunged straight into some unknown part of White Emperor City, emitting a thunderous roar. Water vapor filled the air, refracting rainbows in the sunlight. This counterintuitive scene was shocking enough, but what made Zhu Zhuking's heart tremble even more was the waterfall itself. She didn't even know if it was an illusion. Just by staring directly at this waterfall, Zhu Zhuking felt a slight stinging pain in her eyes, as if she were staring directly at a divine sword, with its sword kai full of murderous intent. Don't you see, the water of the great river comes from the sky, surging to the sea, never to return. Jiang Wanwen looked at Zhu Zhuking somewhat triumphantly. How is it? Do you also think it's spectacular? What is this? Zhu Zhuking asked curiously, still feeling lingering fear. That's it for today's chapter. If you enjoyed it, like, comment, and subscribe to AI Otaku Studio for more stories. Check out my other channel, Infinite Novel Audio, and I'll see you in the next chapter. Headphone Book Sparkles.